Hey everybody, Optimus Tom here. Going to be hopping into a Pioneer League with Gruul Scapeshift. We are in game one already. We won the die roll, and we're going to see if we can put a bunch of gods into play thanks to the world tree. So I might need to scale some things up for everybody here real quick, but we got a bunch of wishes. We got a solemn. See, these are the kinds of hands that I think the deck doesn't really want to see. You really want to have like your 1 and 2 mana plays. You really need a splunking. So, and with the 4 splunking in the deck, this is definitely not a keep. So we're gonna mulligan that one away. This unfortunately looks even worse. Unfortunately, our opponent, however, has also mulligan. So we might as well go down to 5 and just see where we're at. It's not the best showing for the deck in game number 1. But this looks passable. The only downside is that we don't really have the most colored mana. We do have a turn 3 splunking, so I think we're just going to keep this and hope that we find some good stuff on our first couple of turns. We can wind up playing Sunken Citadel tapped, choose green, and then kind of go from there. So this allows us to put back our Klothys and our Golos and see what we can do from here. So our opponent kept 6. Let's see if we can still Scapeshift away. Because we're just 1 green mana and then an additional mana away from actually comboing with this hand. It's just a little bit slow. So our opponent didn't reveal a companion either, so it's possible they could be playing control or something like that. All right, let's see. I'm interested to see how this deck does against interactive decks because... I mean, Rakdos decks and control decks, or like the Spirits deck that hasn't been really popular recently. These all seem like bad matchups for the deck. Phoenix, however, doesn't seem like the worst matchup in the world because they're not packing a ton of main deck counter spells usually. Spell pierces and things like that are usually in the sideboard. Okay, so unfortunately, we draw a second Scapeshift. So we'll just play our Radiant Fountain and pass. And I guess we'll wind up playing a turn 3 splunking. Maybe we draw mana and we can just Scapeshift and win. We'll have to see. Because I know, unfortunately, we have this Sunken Citadel here, which we need to use to float 2 mana to our Scapeshift so we can actually combo with 5 mana instead of 6. So we technically need to find 2 more lands in a row in order for our deck to combo off. So opponent's got 2 fast lands, not that bad. There is potentially like Drawry Disruption and Spell Pierce that we have to worry about. Ledger Shredder seems fine. We're actually not too worried about like any of their creatures really until we start getting into lower life totals. So that's not the worst thing in the world. Boreal Grazer is not really where it's at, unfortunately. I mean, it can block Ledger Shredder for a while. But I guess we'll throw down our Mirrex. And let's see if we draw a land off of Splunking. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, we did not. So we're not going to be able to combo next turn. We would have had to draw land there and then another land to kind of follow that one up. So things aren't starting off the way that we would have hoped for with this deck. But I feel like we are going to have to aggressively mulligan a lot with this deck, mostly because we are a combo deck, so we're going to want to find our combo cards. That's the big thing. And even though we have the Scapeshifts, we don't have the rest of the spells that we need from our deck right now. And we did wind up actually drawing one of the Porphyroses as well, which is unfortunately not the greatest for us because we have no way of putting it back in the deck this way. Right. So they wind up getting a Picklock Prankster. They mill 4, and they put Lightning Axe into their hand. That's fine. Lightning Axe doesn't do a heck of a lot against us. They're going to get Connive, but Ledger Shredder, pitch in the Arclight Phoenix. That's to be expected. However, they are not going to be able to play another spell because they've already played their land for the turn, so it looks like we're just taking 2. Bird comes across. Cool. 22. Or 20 from 22. Okay, Cascading Cataracts is definitely something. The downside is, unfortunately, we actually can't make red mana with the mana that we have in play. Mirrex is only making a mana of any color if it entered the battlefield this turn, and our Sunken Citadel's on green. So I think we're just going to be playing Cascading Cataracts. We could play Porphyros, but so we can't play Porphyros because we don't have the red for that. We could play a Boreal Grazer and not play anything, but I think I'm just kind of content to make a Mirrex token at the end of their turn. Now we're actually in the spot too where we can't actually Scapeshift for our combo unless we draw 2 additional lands, because right now Sunken Citadel is needed to cast our Scapeshift, which is unfortunate. And with Cascading Cataracts needing 5 mana, even tapping the Sunken Citadel for double green here means that we're not going to be able to do what we want to do. But it looks like our opponent is going to be having a very phoenixy turn this turn. Excuse me. Starting off with a 1 mana spell. We know they have a Lightning Axe in their hand, which is in addition to potentially 4 other ones. But there's an additional ops right here, so it looks like Treasure Cruise would be pretty bad for us because that kind of just puts us extremely far behind. Even though we were already behind because we mulliganed. Treasure Cruise is probably the worst card for us to see here from our opponent. But right now, because they have enough to delve away, even just leaving 1 card in their graveyard as well, in addition to the Arclight Phoenix. But they did wind up discarding a Spikefield Hazard, so they should have an additional spell in their hand to get that Phoenix back. Thankfully, they didn't discard an additional Phoenix, but yeah, it looks like a Treasure Cruise. Ugh, this is going to be gross. Deck does not have a great showing for game 1 of match 1, unfortunately. Opponent stopped casting, so maybe not having the Treasure Cruise. Yeah, so from this spot, if we draw a green source, we can only float 1 additional mana, which means that we are not going to be able to get our full combo off because we can only find 3 Sunken Citadels and an Echoing Deeps, which will then get us... We'll be floating 1 mana in addition to the others that we can create from the 5 entering the battlefield, so it's not going to work out because we still need to get the World Tree, which is the unfortunate part. So 3 Sunken Citadels and a Echoing Deeps is not it. Oh, I thought we had Yield until end step on, unfortunately, so I guess I skipped my Mirrex here, but this is just not working out for us. I guess we'll just throw down a Boreal Grazer so we can start chump blocking and saving some life. I had Yield through turn instead of Yield until end of turn, unfortunately. So we wind up missing a Mirrex there, which I guess we would have had a Might on the battlefield, but it can't block anyway, and they're flying, so not the greatest. But this one looks like it got away from us, unfortunately. Post sideboard, we could potentially be bringing in things like Braids if we really wanted to kill their creatures. I'm assuming that they, without seeing anything from us, which is what I'm hoping, is they don't really have a ton of a clue what we're playing, so they might not be bringing in things like Hearse to get rid of things for Echoing Deeps, or bringing in any sort of like counter magic, because right now it kind of looks like we're playing like an awkward version of like a Golos 4-color ramp deck, which did not happen to ramp this game. Picklock Prankster, we need the second spell that they cast. Bins another Phoenix. So it's going to be 6-10. We'll be at 4. So it looks like that we're not going to be able to... We can block this 4, so we'd still be at 8. But it doesn't look like that we're going to be having a big shot in this game, unfortunately. Yeah, the lightning axe is in their hand from before. So they scarred a lightning axe that as well. They've had the sleight of hand. And then probably another opt or consider here to get the Phoenix back out of the graveyard. So we are going to be going down to 4. And then, oh, no, they didn't. Okay, so we're only taking 7, which leaves us at 7. And then it's very possible that we could live for one more turn here. Still have 4 cards in hand. Well, we draw Golos, so we're going to concede and go to the sideboard here. Just a little unfortunate we mulliganed to 5 and then didn't really have any sort of engine for us to go for. Things that we can look for to the sideboard in, the Tormod's Crypt I think is better left as a wish target. If they have any sort of clue as to what we're doing, they're probably bringing in Aether Gust and Disdainful Strokes and maybe some negates, which would be really annoying for us. We don't really have anything to kind of go against that. Cindervines is maybe not the greatest here. The Cavern of Souls might be something that we bring in case we need to just start hard casting gods. It gets around some of their counter magic, but I don't think it's really great. The only things I'm really looking for are the Abrades, in case they bring in some sort of artifact hate, like maybe they wind up bringing in, I don't know if these lists are running things like Grafdigger's Cage. I don't really see that on the stock list. If it's something they need to use to deal with Amalia combo. Don't really think that we need Brotherhood's End or the Valakut expiration. I think honestly, on the play too, we're in a better position to kind of just get our combo off. So I'm just gonna resubmit the full deck of 60 and just hope that we don't have to mulligan to 5 and have no colored mana in our hand, unfortunately. So we'll go first. So we're in a little bit of an awkward situation here because the Sunken Citadel is going to come into play. The Sunken Citadels, we have 2 of them in our hand. We ideally want to be scape-shifting for them. However, we do have 2 copies of Echoing Deeps, which means we could still find 2 Sunken Citadel, 2 Echoing Deeps off of a scape shift. So I think what we're going to be doing is keeping this. If we wind up drawing a Splunking, that'd be very, very good for us because we can then just go turn 2 Splunking, which would be very powerful. And we can go Boreal Grazer to go Citadel, Citadel. So I think that's what we're going to be doing. Let's see if our opponent decides to keep 7 this game as well. And it looks like yes. So let's go. We can also turn to Klothys, which against Phoenix is really, really good. We can start getting some of the stuff out of the graveyard too, which is pretty nice. So Sunken Citadel entering tapped. I'm sorry, turn 3 Klothys. I forgot that Sunken Citadel comes into play tapped. So we can't actually Grazer. But then we can Grazer, play an additional land, and have a bunch of mana left. A bunch of mana open in the next turn. Ooh, this is actually pretty interesting as well. Unfortunately, we can't do Grazer because we don't have untapped green mana. So let's do this. I think it is just better than playing the Glimpse the Core because the Glimpse the Core will still make something come into play tapped. And we're doing double green here so that we can rip a Scapeshift. We don't have any other green sources. We still have the Sokenzon that we can play, so that'll be how we wind up getting our red mana for Klothys next turn. You can Surveil, you consider, get your Surveil off, bidding the Treasure Cruise. That's all right. So they're probably taking for mana because otherwise you keep the Treasure Cruise in like 90% of the cases. Consider before playing a land is also probably indicative of that. And then, yeah, keeping on top. Or, yeah, drawing the card off of the consider without surveilling. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, we got a Wish. That's pretty good because that means that we can, if we get 1 more mana, we can set up a Scapeshift. I guess 2 technically because we don't necessarily want to be Scapeshifting away on 5 lands if we have 2 Sunken Citadels here. All right, so Klothys is going to be at the beginning of my pre-combat main phase, exile a target card. If it's a land card, we add mana, otherwise we gain 2 life and deal 2 damage to each opponent. So we're not going to be able to glimpse the core this turn if we want to play Klothys. So do that, get our green, play Klothys. And then part of me just wants to play the Arboreal Grazer, just to have an additional blocker for the flying army they're eventually going to have. Spell Pierce will not hit that because it is a creature. Put a Boreal Grazer into play. Unfortunately, no additional lands. Let's trigger our Klothys. Oh, sorry, that triggers in the pre-combat main phase. So that would be next turn. You can exile the Treasure Cruise. Just start attacking their graveyard a little bit so they don't wind up having delve fodder. They're thinking twice about putting phoenixes into their graveyard, those kinds of things. Next turn, I think we're going to be glimpsing the core, so we can find ourselves a forest. Then that will open up one of our sunken citadels. So if we find forest, and then next turn draw, or any number of the turns from now, we draw into a Scapeshift, we'll be able to cast it and then combo off. This also, I forgot the Arboreal Grazer here is also going to be adding to the devotion count for Klothys. So Klothys is, well, it needs 4. It needs 7. Unfortunately, it's only at 4. So they are getting dangerously close to Treasure Cruise already. I can actually cast it next turn if they play a land or if they play another spell here. But I think they're going to be trying to keep up Spell Pierce because they're trying to Spell Pierce this previously. Okay, our end step. Klothys is going to trigger on our pre-combat main phase. Let's get rid of Treasure Cruise. Hit them for 2. And now that we've drawn Solemn Simulacrum, since we saw them tapping to try to counter the Klothys, I think it's safer to play Solemn than it is Glimpse the Core. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The 1 mana creature counter magic is just not there in Pioneer. And this will do the exact same thing. We even potentially have, if they kill it, we draw a card, so we get a second look at potentially a Scapeshift. So we'll find me a forest. Thanks to Tom Hanks. And then if you're watching this on YouTube as well, I put the card art down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Let me know if that's a good spot for it to be. Honestly, I looked at what Mango was doing because Mango usually takes a lot of Twitch streams and just auto uploads it to YouTube. So I was trying to mimic the overlay a little bit. Obviously, I don't have all the sponsorships and everything because I'm not as popular or cool as Mango. So I took his stream overlay and kind of did something very similar, using just the window capture for the card rather than like screen capturing and accidentally covering it while I'm looking at stuff on the side, like my Streamlabs and stuff like that. So let me know in the comments if it's a good place for it, if it's distracting or not. But I just wanted a place where you guys could see the cards while you're watching. This is like a hard-casted Crackling Drake. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, Crackling Drake is something that plays well into our Klothys. But it's only a 5/4 right now, and our opponent is tapped out. So if we rip a Scapeshift here, we're in really good shape. Unfortunately, we don't have the Splunking, so we can't actually combo. But we can at least find all the lands, and then they're not going to be playing anything to really disrupt what we're trying to do with our lands. Get rid of the Sleight of Hand. Let's see if they block. Attack with Solemn. Potential that we draw Splunking. Potential that we draw land, which would be pretty good too, because I could go Wish for Splunking, cast Splunking, which would be pretty good. I could cast Wish and Glimpse the Core. There's a whole lot of things I could do this turn. So we'll just start by attacking. Opponent's probably just going to take it. Don't want us to let us draw a card. Cool. And let's start with Glimpse the Core. What else could we wish for? Let's take a look at what our deck has. So what we could wish for is Splunking, but we can't cast it right away. We could wish for Scapeshift, but we have an additional wish in our hand, so we're probably going to be wishing for Splunking. Glimpse the Core will just find us a land, so I think that's what we're going to wind up doing. I think we're just going to Glimpse the Core, find us a forest, put onto the battlefield tapped, and then reveal our grand scheme to our opponent by wishing for a Splunking. Oh, wait, we can't because we don't have Splunking in our sideboard. I forgot. So we're going to just grab our Scapeshift now, I think. The other thing that we could get is Quakebringer, which we can then hardcast, which seems okay because then we're draining them for 4 per turn. Quakebringer can just die, however, so I think we're just going to wind up snagging our Scapeshift. Oh, I can't cast that this turn, so that's my bad. It allows me to play a card from outside. It does not allow me to cast the card or put it into my hand. I was thinking of something a little bit different. So we are just going to get the World Tree. And then pass. This is my inexperience with playing with Wish, unfortunately. Thinking that it was just a literally burning Wish, put it into my hand instead of casting the card for the mana that it requires. So here I was thinking of all these lines in my head that aren't actually possible because you can't do that, Star Fox. But my idea here with the World Tree is now we have 2, 4, 6, 8 mana. So they're going to be fiery impulsing away one of my grazers. Sure, you could do that. Puts a Phoenix in the graveyard. So they're probably going to try to do a Phoenix turn here. But what we can do here is with the World Tree, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 mana. So if we wind up drawing a Sunken Citadel now, that is live to combo just by the fact that we have the World Tree in play. They only cast 2 spells this turn. Unfortunate for them. They did, however, get rid of all of my blockers and make Klothys a little bit worse. But they put a Phoenix in the graveyard, and Klothys is going to nom that one up. So none of us have lands in the graveyard, unfortunately, so Klothys can't make a mana. So land Klothys is also not a way for us to get out of this. Taking a look at the sideboard again. Okay, so we do have a land. If we had a land, then land Klothys would have gotten us out of this. If we do wind up wishing, though, what can we do? Can we wish with Scapeshift? They do still potentially have that Spell Pierce that we've been thinking that they had this entire part of the game. So we may want to kind of contemplate what we're thinking of doing here with that. Because let's see, if we were to wish for Scapeshift, we have to pay 3 for the wish, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 for the Scapeshift. So then that winds up giving us 1 mana left open, unfortunately. So let's start by attacking. So that's 1 mana too short to wish and Scapeshift this turn. Maybe they block. Give us a Sunken Citadel. Let us play a Splunking or something. No blocks. Gotcha. Just double checking again, making sure my math is correct. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, that would be 7 mana required, and doesn't quite do it. What we could do is get us a Valakut exploration first. So if we wish Valakut exploration, we can't play the land post combat. Oh, we can't play the land before after we do that. So that's probably not where it's at. We could play for the Quakebringer and just wish for that, or we could draw one more land and then combo, but maybe not have the mana to pay for it through a Spell Pierce. We're still at a healthy 21, so I don't really think there's any rush to do anything. So I'm just going to play it a little bit slow, play our land for the turn, and let our opponent decide what they're going to do. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana for our Scapeshift, 3 mana for our Wish, and then we could float for our Sunken Citadel. We still don't have our Splunking, so we can't actually do that. Spikefield Hazard me. See if they put some Phoenixes into the graveyard. Oh, just a Lightning Axe. Okay, so Lightning Axe out of their hand is pretty good, because now this makes Quakebringer a live play, which between Quakebringer and Klothys could potentially be enough to just clock them out. Ooh, the Galvanic iteration in their graveyard is a little bit scary, though. Quakebringer is the beginning of the upkeep, so upkeep Quakebringer and then main phase Klothys. So Klothys has to hit this Galvanic, and this Klothys normally just being cast instead of being in the deck to combo with is working out for us pretty well. Let's see if they tap out here, though, because if they tap out, then we can just... we still just need one more land to combo, though. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So one land lets us combo. They haven't pitched any lands, unfortunately, so Klothys isn't able to help us here. We're taking a pretty big swing from the Crackling Drake, though. So we really just have this turn, I think. Okay. So land. We're looking for land. All that finds a land, it is not a land, unfortunately. So we hit the Galvanic iteration. So that turn we didn't do anything. If we wished for Cavern of Souls, we would have been able to combo here, right? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. Yeah, we would have been able to kill here if we did that. So this could be wish for burn down the house, which I think is what we have to do just to survive. So let's attack first with our side robot. Maybe they block. Of course not. Doesn't really matter which lands we tap because everything taps for all the colors. And let's burn down the house. Red, red, colorless, red, and a blue for posterity's sake. As it does let them connive, so one of these shredders could potentially get out of burn down the house range, but thankfully that would put it at a 4/6, and then they could get it to a 5/6. So if they have Shredder and Phoenix, still doesn't kill us then, which is pretty nice. but we are alive yet barely breathing. Our opponent is down to 6, and Cloth is down to 4. We could draw a land here, and if we draw a land off of our Solemn Simulacrum, we can just combo next turn. And if we, combo, we just literally activate the World Tree. And okay, so they have Picklock, Pranksters, Consider, Spiral of... Oh, the Spiral of Canal's in the graveyard now. Cool. So we don't even need to draw a land. Clothis should be enough. We draw land anyway. Cool. We have a Spiral of Canal. All right. So I think we win. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. Not as fast and as combo-y as we were hoping the deck to be, but hey, we'll win a game. Unless they go like double Phoenix. Okay, Ledger Shredder as a start means that they're probably not going to kill us. Here's a second spell. That puts us down to... oh, they're just hard casting Picklock Prankster. Okay, we get the double Shredder. We should probably just yield until next end step because we have no effects. Opponent's taking a decent amount of clock too, so we're actually up by about 5 minutes, which normally I play slow because I'm talking and playing at the same time, but no, opponent's doing it for us. So let me just double count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We get down to 4. Cool. I'll just draw a god now just so it's like less. Let's just get rid of the Spiral of Canal just in case. Give us a red mana. So then these will be... oh, no. We want to use the ability. That'll be double green. We go white, we go white. We go blue, we go blue, we go black, we go black. Two. Why are you going so slow, Moto? And boom! Valhalla and Olympus rain down upon them. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. No more gods left. Can we do... oh, I'm going to keep this Porphyros. I'm going to keep this... oh, here, Axel and you. And boom! Cool. So now our opponent knows what we're doing. So that means that they're going to be putting in a lot more counter magic. They are going to be playing the game a little bit slower, though. The counter magic, we don't really have anything for. The wish for the burn down the house is great, and we win a long game, it looks like, because we just play lands and they can't interact with that. One thing I could do is put in these Valakut explorations, which seem pretty good. However, I think I'm going to do that and just take out 2 Golos. The Solemn Simulacrum drew us a card, so I mean it did something. Clothis was an all-star. I hope I draw that again, even though it's a god and I kind of want it in my deck, but hey, it wound up working out. But these Valakut explorations, if we can play them like on turn 2, or have them have to spell pierce this because it's just card advantage, and then potentially doming them the same way Clothis did that game, is very, very good for us. So I think that like our plan B against Phoenix is something they actually have to worry about. And oh my goodness, this hand is absolute trash. This is a hard mulligan. They also mulligan though, and oh my goodness. Oh. I just hope that they don't keep 1 mana untapped on their turn 2. Let them tap out for something. Let them tap out for a Ledger Shredder, because a Boreal Grazer are about to go wild. We're about to a Boreal Grazer into Splunking, and we could potentially have a very fun game this game. Awesome. And we have an Echoing Deeps, which isn't the greatest, but it could be worse. So let's Grazer. I would like to use Grazer's ability. Put a World Tree onto the battlefield and pass. This could be fun. We could actually play a Splunking this game, which we haven't done in either of our games quite yet. Oh, yes. Player Ledger Shredder. Thank you, no Spell Pierce. Oh, baby. That's cool. All right. So we'll play our Radiant Fountain. Cool. We gain 2 life. Cast our Splunking. Put an Echoing Deeps onto the battlefield, which unfortunately only taps for colorless right now. We'll do a second Splunking, which can do some interesting things too. But we'll just pass. If we draw a land, we can Scapeshift and float 1 mana. But we would need to find a World Tree. So we can't actually go for our full combo. But what we can do is bait out some. Ooh, that's pretty cool. What we can do is bait out some counter magic with a second Splunking. And then Wish from our sideboard can potentially grab a World Tree, which would put it into the battlefield, which isn't like the greatest thing, but it gives us like the 1 extra mana that we would want. We can't actually tap for red, unfortunately, so Wish is actually not on the table right now. So I think it's just going to wind up being Splunking, baiting out counter magic and passing. Spell Pierce. Yep, that's fine. Cannot pay for Spell Pierce, unfortunately. We'll just play in a Boreal Grazer. Oh, yeah, I forgot that gives our opponent a Connive. So maybe the Grazer wasn't the greatest thing in the world. If they discard a Phoenix here, that's pretty bad for us. Okay, so Spiraleft Canal. So it actually doesn't grow. And unfortunately, we don't have anything else. We'll yield till end step. So Scapeshift from this position lets us find 4 lands. So it could potentially let us find like 4 Sunken Citadels, which we could all put on different colors. Okay, but them just doing nothing with 3 mana and not even having an extra mana is a little problematic for us. Okay, Boseiju is interesting because if we play Boseiju, now we have 1 floating mana, which means that we're 1 more away from being able to Scapeshift into the combo. So I'll just play Boseiju and pass. The no red mana to like use Wish to bait out extra counter magic is a little frustrating here. Okay, we're gonna do Free the Fae. What do they mill over? Fire Impulse, Treasure Cruise, River Glide Pathway, and Ledger Shredder. So they're going to get Treasure Cruise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, what did they take? Fire Impulse. All right, so they may just be going for a big Phoenix turn off of Connive. No, they're just going to get it out of their hand now. They have 3 cards in hand. I'm sorry, 4 cards in hand after drawing here, but they'll discard down to 3. If they discard a Phoenix, they need to literally have 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, right? Oh, they're discarding a land too. So I guess they're just really afraid of our Arboreal Grazers. I guess it represents a blocker. But let's see. I think our plan is to just go land and Scapeshift. Okay, so there's op number 1, spell number 1, finds them a land. Spell number 2 gets them a Connive, that's fine. They bin and opt, so there's no Phoenixes in their hand, because that would have been the spot to do it. It's just triple opt in their graveyard, and they're battling the clock, so we might win this one to time, because I don't know what I'm going to be doing with no red mana. They are tapping all of their blue mana here too, which is very good for us, because if they if we draw land, we just win. Okay, there's their Treasure Cruise. About a turn too late for them, unfortunately. Oh, there's their Phoenix. Okay, they found the Phoenix. They got the Lightning Axe. They're attacking for 5. Okay. Land 1 time. Untapped, or comes into play untapped land 1 time, because we do have temples in this deck. But I guess Splunking can help with that, so land. Nice. I would like to have that into the battlefield untapped. So let's... Hey, that also turns on our wish, which we don't need right now. So let's float... I think we just want... red mana? So we want Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, World Tree, and then let's just get a Cascading Cataracts. So 1 will be white, 1 will be blue, 1 will be black, 1 will be green, untapped, 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 and then... So we need the green, we need the black, we need the blue, we need the white. Oh, it didn't actually add it to the spell. And then we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good game, opponent. So we keep one of our Ohirax O'Neill, one of our Porphyros, and boom, boom, boom. There we go. Cool. We did it. There we go. We comboed. That was pretty cool. We actually got to do it. The best part, too, is these Hierox O'Neills just turn into lands after they die, which is pretty nice, too. But it's not like we really need them once we wind up winning the game. So that was cool. We wound up playing against one of the top-tier metagame shared decks, one of the better decks in the format, and we mulliganed to 5 and had no colored mana for a little while and only a green at one point in time, so that wasn't ideal, but we were able to wind up taking a win in the following 2 matches. One by just playing the long game and playing not necessarily control, but just responding to what our opponent was doing. Getting the burn down the house with the wish out of the sideboard when our opponent tapped out because they didn't really know what we were planning. That was really good. We played around their spell pierces. We baited out their spell pierce with the splunking. We gave them a connive trigger, which wasn't the greatest, but hey, I never said I was the best Magic the Gathering player in the world, so that was pretty cool. I like raining the gods down upon everybody. That was twice we actually wound up killing with our actual combo. That was really cool. Although I guess the second game, Klothys did a lot of the heavy lifting, putting them down to a very low life total and kind of eating their graveyard. The Klothys is something that I'm thinking that, looking at the deck list as a whole, as we're just kind of waiting for our next matchup, the Solemns and the Goloses. If you watch my longer version of the deck tech video, this is something that I was kind of like, I don't really know if the Solemns and the Golos are where the deck wants to be. They're a little bit slow. Golos can find you lands, so like if you play Golos with 5 mana and you find your 6, you can set up a Scapeshift afterwards. So I can see how Golos is potentially good enough to play in the deck. I don't know if it's a 4 of. And I don't know if Solemn Simulacrum is a 4 of. We saw it be doing very mediocre things there. I don't know if you want to wind up putting things like Dryad of the Elysian Grove in the Solemn Simulacrum slot just to kind of work the same way that Golos would be on turn or on 5 mana. You do that on 3 mana and you get the additional lands every turn. You play Azusa Lost But Seeking instead of Dryad if you want to play it something a little bit more budget. But Dryad also makes all of our lands tap for any color of mana, and we saw there that sometimes even having red mana can be a little bit difficult. Making sure that your Sunken Citadels are on the right colors, and the fact that the Sunken Citadels that are in play earlier might need to be on green or red to cast things when you need to have white, blue, and black from their activated ability as well. So I'm wondering if maybe the Goloses and the Solemn Simulacrums could be maybe an additional Klothys, or maybe there should be a Klothys in the sideboard. I also like Xenagos, God of Revels, is potentially a way to kind of just sneak through some damage on like a smaller board of Scapeshift, but we'll have to see. Now we wound up winning another die roll here, so that's pretty cool. I would like to play first. Good luck, have fun, opponent. I forgot that I had like my chat kind of hit him before, so I was a little BM to my opponent who was trying to talk to me before. This is unfortunately a hard mulligan, and I don't know why the card disappeared, so I'll fix that as well while we're waiting to resolve our mulligans. But 2 lands, a Boreal Grazer, Splunking. If it's 3 lands, it's a Snap Keep. Considering it's not 3 lands, but we're still just kind of very likely to draw lands. Maybe we keep. Maybe it's good enough. We can go Grazer, Temple into play, Scry, see if there's a land on top. If there is, we just draw it, play Splunking. So I think, yeah. And then we could put one of these wishes back, I think. See a Solemn earns its slot if we draw additional land. No companion again, so we could potentially be against Phoenix for second time. It could be Amalia, it could be Control. We'll have to wait and see. Put a Temple into play. We have a land. Nope, that goes to the bottom. That is not the Solemn we want to see. My opponent said good luck back. Thanks, Mashmalovsky. Razor Verge Thicket. All right, Greasefang, Amalia. Ooh, Elvish Mystic. Hot damn. All right, well, we didn't wind up drawing a land, so that is very bad for us. We are drawing 3 of our 4 Solemn Simulacrums when we were just talking shit about Tom Hanks, the sad robot, so it's not exactly where we want to be. But we still have our Splunking. We find a land, could draw another land, put it onto the battlefield then, wind up having a good Splunking turn that sets us up for... Oh, I didn't want to concede. I want to just yield. It sets us up for potentially good turns still. We're playing against Angels. That's what it is. This is a matchup that I don't think is going to be good, especially if we don't draw lands. So, lesson learned, sad robot 2 land Splunking is not a hand that we can keep. We need to mulligan more aggressively. This matchup, however, is going to be one where Quakebringer may be a deciding factor. I don't know if we want to put it in our main deck because we kind of want to be able to have multiple copies, like air quotes, multiple copies of it. So it may actually be an angle where we keep it in our sideboard so we can wish for it. Opponent is going to be gaining abnormal amounts of life now. We can block this. Haha, take that. Hidden Reach. Or, yeah, probably. Okay, so we're not drawing any lands whatsoever, so it's not where we want to be. But there's no reason to concede quite yet. What this does tell us is that our opponent isn't going to really be having any sort of removal spells for what our deck is going to be doing. Or hand disruption and counter magic. They could be bringing in like portable holes, which don't really matter too much for us. Anointed Peacekeeper would be something that gets to be very annoying for our deck. Archon of Emeria as well, with non-basic lands entering tapped. We'd need a Splunking in order to do something with that. And then Redain could also be something that is very obnoxious for us. All right, we'll block one of these very, very large creatures now. They're going to be getting an Angel at the end of the turn. And then we are probably conceding, even if we draw a land, because we don't want to really play the Splunking and tell them, yeah, cool. So there's Scapeshift. That is not where we want to be. So 27 land deck, unfortunately, mulligan down to 6 and only had 2 lands. But that's just RNG for you. So where do we want to be looking at now for this game? We don't really care about Cavernous Souls, the World Tree. These are still going to be tutor targets. The Cavernous Souls doesn't really need to come in to kind of have us hard cast anything to counter magic. They don't care about their own graveyard, so Tormod's Crypt doesn't work. Pithing Needle doesn't matter because they don't have activated abilities. Cinder Vines, they're mostly casting creatures. Abrades are removal spells that we can have for some of their early drops if we want to play the game that way. But I think we're really kind of trying to get our combo down as fast as possible. The Burn Down the Houses are something that we could bring in, but like the Quakebringer in this matchup, I think I kind of want to have access to 4 of them rather than 2. So I think what I want to do is bring 1 in and then cut one of these Solemns because it was just abysmal that game, drawing them in multiples. They're going to be having flying creatures and stuff anyway, so Solemn can't even block to die and draw us a card. Golos is something we can look at. This Valakut Exploration, again, just being able to dome them and give us some card advantage in a kind of grindy matchup. I think that's might be where we want to be at. So we'll cut 2 of the Golos. We'll play the Valakut Exploration. We could just make them Abrades so that we're on the play. We can kind of remove Giadas and stuff and start kind of hindering their game plan. That might be better than the Valakut Explorations in this matchup, though. So we'll put the Abrades in. Maybe we take a second Solemn out and put 1 Valakut Exploration in and then have the wish board for the 1. So we have 5 copies in our deck now. So let's see if we keep a better hand than the first one. So this can enter the battlefield tapped, and we have no cards in graveyard, so it won't actually tap for colored mana. Sunken Citadel can be on green, which will give us a turn to Glimpse the Core, which then puts us up to 4 mana because we find a forest off of this, and then we're 2 mana away from Scapeshifting for a bunch of stuff. We have a Porphyros in our hands still. I think we technically have better hands than this, but since we can get up to 4 mana really quick. If we draw 1 mana, we can always get to a position where, I mean, we need 8 technically to wish for burn down the house. So I'm going to keep it. I think this is a bad matchup anyway, so I'm just going to keep this and see if we're actually able to do something with drawing out of the game rather than trying to mulligan down for the like fastest hand possible, which might not even be good enough if they just gain 20 life on turn 4 or something like that with a bishop hand. Bishop being a 1/4 is bad too for the abrades that we brought in. Maybe we should have put 1 abrade in and 1 abrade sideboard for the wish package, but yeah. All right, if we draw abrade here, we're just casting it and getting rid of the Elvish Mystic so they can't Valkyrie up. It's not where they're at though, so we'll just glimpse our core. Second copy of Wish though means that I might just find one of the lands in my sideboard to 3 mana ramp spell. Because then we can get Forest here, enters the battlefield tapped, and then depending on what we draw next turn, we could wish for Cavern of Souls, wish for World Tree, do any sort of number of things with our sideboard here. Pithing Needles don't do anything, Tormod's Crypt doesn't do anything, so mainly looking at these lands here. We can't cast the Quakebringer, unfortunately, which would be really where we want to be at. But I think wishing to go up to 5 mana next turn because we'll be playing the Pit Offering as well. Not the worst thing in the world. Drawing an untapped land, we could play Porphyros if we really want to. Okay, so they play a second Elvish Mystic, so probably Mystic into Giada. Okay, that makes sense. We draw a Sad Robot, which is, again, not looking like a great card to have here. All right, so we can at the very least exile our Glimpse the Core. So that will create a mana for us, but wish for a World Tree. What happened to my wish? I played a land this turn. So my wish didn't do anything. That's a bit of a punt there. That's inexperience with wish again. It's play, not put into play or cast. So I kind of just time blocked myself there. That's a little unfortunate. But from this standpoint, we can still, if we draw a land, we're still live for combo. Because if we draw a land, we can do green, green, colorless, colorless, float the 2 green here, and then we get a Echoing Deeps, 3 Sunken Citadels, and a World Tree. So we are still live for combo. Opponent is holding up Collected Company, which is fine. And oh no, they're just gonna play a post-combat Righteous Valkyrie. That's also fine. Maybe Resplendent Angel. Oh no, Redain. That's real problematic now because now we need 6 mana for our Scapeshift, which is gross. Oh, and we could have had a kill there too. Damn, Redain's really good. On creature spells your opponents cast with mana value 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. So this would be 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we don't get to float this mana as well because we need to use it to cast something. So if we want to do this, we could potentially... Solemn finds us a land, so that's just straight up better than wishing for a land. So play Solemn. Yes, I would like to use Solemn's ability. Find us a forest. And now this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we draw a land, we can pay for Redain, use our Sunken Citadel for its 2 mana ability, and still win the game that way. We need an untapped land, and then we need to survive as well because we don't have the splunking to have everything enter untapped. So survival doesn't look great if they just play another angel here because that's one of the better ones actually. They'll only gain 3 life off of this one to go to 23. Right? Yeah. Excuse me. Probably should drink some water. So the go are 24 because it still gets the bonus counters there. Oh man, Skyclave making it so Solemn doesn't die to draw us a card either. Oof. Okay, so thankfully they haven't gone up to enough life to murder us. Ooh, Sunken Citadel is not where I want it to be, I don't think. All right, so what's the plan? I can't wish for Burn Down the House because Burn Down the House will cost 4 or greater. I can wish for Brotherhood's End, which will kill everything except for the Righteous Valkyrie. So I think that's where I have to go. Ooh, no, I cannot because I do not have 3 red. I still need to be able to cast this. So I can't do any of those. This is looking like a potential dead angle because we're at 11 right now. And this on the battlefield is 3, 7, dead. So this entering the battlefield tapped kind of stinks here. Just one more cursory look through the sideboard. Wishing takes up this mana. We messed up our sequencing with our Pit Offering. Otherwise, we would have been able to do that this turn with our Pit Offering, unfortunately. But this is on green, so that only makes green mana. If we wish, we have 3 mana available, which can only play Valakut Exploration, which doesn't do anything right now because we just played our land for the turn before that. So yeah, this deck does require a little bit of practice in some of the tougher matchups. But as I was saying, this Angels matchup is probably one of the worst for us because of how much life they gain. Amalia might be one that's a little more difficult as well. But it looks like this is a good game, unfortunately. So we learned a couple of things that game. We learned that the 2 land hands and trying to top deck a land is probably not where we want to be. I mentioned that we had better 6 land hands than the hand that we kept as well. So that may be where we want to look to, is to just mulligan more aggressively, play this like the combo deck is supposed to be, rather than trying to just natural draw into things. I did kind of resign myself to that one being a bad matchup and trying some things out. So unfortunately didn't work out for us. I think mulliganing aggressively for something along the lines of Splunking, Glimpse the Core, Arboreal Grazer, any sort of combination of those cards early on. And again, these Solemns and these Goloses not really being where the deck wants to be at. And we won another die roll though, so we're on the play all of these games, which is fantastic. But we've lost our first games of each match, so this is interesting because this is one of those 2 land hands. However, it has legitimately everything I said we wanted in it besides this Porphyros. So this is going to be a sneep. playing out Stomping Ground turn 1, playing a Boreal Grazer, and then we could potentially draw a third land to play Splunking. If we don't, we can glimpse the core. That gets us our third land. There's a lot of great things that are going on here. This is yet another opponent with no... Oh, sorry, they do have a Gigant to the Wellspring, so it could be Convoke. We could be playing against Rakdos Sack. Could be playing against any number of Giganta decks, so something to keep in mind. Well, yes, I would like to hurt myself to play a monkey that is not a monkey. It is technically a beast. And I would like to use Grazer's ability to put this World Tree into play. Just, you know, nothing big going on over here. Okay, Thoughtseize will hit our Splunking. So now we're probably against Rakdos Sack. It could still be Rakdos mid-range without Shieldred, but very unlikely. Most likely going to be Rakdos Sack. I don't know why the card disappears in between games. That may be just something that I just eventually want to change it into screen capture instead of window capture. Oh, they hit our Porphyros. So we're still live for a Splunking with a land here. Or just redundant Splunking is actually pretty good too. We'll take those. Even with Cat Oven shenanigans, I don't think this deck is going to be above 40 life, so I don't think this one is nearly as bad of a matchup as people may think it could be. All right. Let's splunk. Yeah. This is great. Look at all these lands we have now. We're out of forests. We're out of basic forests already, and we can tap for any color of mana. This is great. Look at this. Look at us. We're doing the mana ramp things, but now we don't have any payoffs, which is unfortunate. Sure. We have the cat things. That's fine. Yield until end step. So what can we do next turn? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total mana. We have 5 mana for our World Tree activations. Sunken Citadel gets us up to 7. Fatal Push, that's fine. You can attack me for 1. Wow. And they have 2 red available. Okay, so we drop a Seiju, so... Spelunking number 1, or Splunking number 2. What do we got? Cool. I'm going to play this Boseiju rather than ramping my opponent because we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands here. Kind of wish this deck had a companion now, but I don't believe there are any that actually work because gods are not cats, elementals, whatever Kahira needs. You could have a Yorion, I guess, if you wanted to play a Yorion version of the deck, but you're not going to be... you're not necessarily going to be doing any Yorion casting because you don't have the green and blue to cast, green and white to cast it without the citadels. I mean, the World Tree will help you do that, I guess. I do not want to yield to this turn anymore. Yeah. Let's see. Opponent's going to attack. We draw Wish, and we win. We draw Scapeshifts, and we win. So there's a lot of different things we could do here. We are at 12 though, so we're getting a little bit low. Interest, that's cool. Get the Deadly Dispute, draw 2 cards. Second cat, yeah. What we got? Not quite where we want to be. This still puts us at 1. Let's see. I would not like to pay 2 life. Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sunken Citadel wins us the game. Scapeshift wins us the game. Wish wins us the game. Wish. Let's think about this for a second. So let's just do, so we definitely need this, this, and this. While these can, then we need that, 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 and that. Right? It's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then let's just do 2 black for these ones. So cast Wish. Get us Escape Shift. Cool. And then let's just find all the lands. So we want Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, World Tree. We'll take a Radiant Fountain to gain some life. We'll take Cascading Cataracts. We'll take a Mirex and an Echoing Deeps. So we need white, we need blue, we need red, and we need green. I would like all of these to enter the battlefield untapped. And now I would like to rain the heavens down upon you, you poor Rakdos sacrifice deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will keep 1 Ohir Axolil. Yo. And then here we go. Boom. 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 They're not quite dead, but they're pretty close to it. Because I can now activate this, make my creatures large. This can transform into a god again, which I think actually helps me out, right? Because it enters the battlefield again. Does it? When it transforms. No, it doesn't. Okay. Now we know. Good to know. So because they discarded our first Porphyros, we only had enough damage to hit them for what, 1, 2, 3, 4 gods. So that was only 16 damage. And they were at 23. So the game is not quite won yet, but we are in a very good position because next turn we are just attacking with a trampling 4/4 and a indestructible 4/5. We're also going to be able to drain them for 2. And if we play an Arboreal Grazer, we hit them for 4 damage. So things are looking pretty good here. And then we can just transform one of these to have an untapped Ohirax on you. Claim the Firstborn. Not the worst thing in the world, but the Clothis unfortunately won't do anything for them because they don't have enough devotion, and it triggers on pre-combat main phase. So let's see what their play is going to be here. So we did ramp things that game. I think they're just going to be making a lot of blockers now. This Mirex is also going to be able to make us dome them for 4, which is pretty neat. If anything happens, we can just give things trample a bunch. Let's see. I should actually think about this. So, okay, well, opponent conceded here, but taking a look at our board, if we were to tap for 3, we get 1 damage. So we know that tapping 2 lands here, a Sunken Citadel for the land thing, and any land for Mirex, this is more damage than that. And then this would be 3 damage, this would be 3 damage, and that would be 2 damage. 1 damage would be 1 damage, an additional 2. So potentially dealing 6 with our Ohirax Anil. But yeah, so we know that this isn't an instant kill in this matchup, especially if we draw the Porphyros. Having double Porphyros is the only way to get the double the damage triggers, because it works like the Valakuts, where you need multiple copies of Valakut to deal multiple instances of the damage. Otherwise, you just wind up getting the one source dealing all the damage, so it doesn't work out the way that we really want to. This is a matchup where Pithing Needle is actually probably pretty good to stop the oven. A Braid is also probably pretty good because it stops some of their stuff. Solemn Simulacrum is actually a body against them, but I still think we want to take at least one of them out. And then we'll take out one of the Golos as well, because these are like the flex slot cards here. So replacing all of our flex slot cards with our sideboard cards is probably the best way to go about it. I might actually want a second Abrade. The Cinder Vines is also not the worst, but they're going to be casting a lot of creatures, so I don't think that's where we want to be. Tormod's Crypt, I think, as a silver bullet from the sideboard is better than trying to sideboard it in. I think I'm just going to put all of these in instead, and then just, again, cut down to 2 of each of the golem dudes in our deck. All right, so that was a pretty successful game there. This is, like I said, there's an instance where we actually get to do Scapeshift God things, and we don't immediately kill our opponent. So this deck is not an instant kill by any means, especially if you lose one of your Porphyroses, but still kind of fun. As the person who normally plays the Rakdos sack deck too, I'm not happy to potentially have to play against a lot of this deck. I'm not super jazzed about it. I'm not going to be not going to lie. I'm a little sad that my deck is getting a little bit worse between this and the Amalia combo deck, which I think are both bad matchups for it. But we'll have to see. I'm just gonna play to my webcam a little bit too. Let me know if you're watching this later on if you want to see what my shirts are. I'm wearing representing the New York City Ren Fair from Tuxedo Forests today. Grew up in New Jersey, went there for many, many years. So, all right, opponent mulligan to 6. In the vein of we have better hands than ramp spell into a bunch of mana. We don't even have a world tree, which I think would make this a consideration. So we're going to try to find one of our better 6s. Well, we have a Porphyros in hand again. We do have an Abrade to kill an early oven, and we have a Temple of Abandon. But if we Abrade an early oven, we're not going to be able to glimpse the core here. So I think we're actually going to go down to 5 here. And we get an okay hand. I think what we do is put back a wish. I mean, because they can thought seize us, right? And this hand is not very thought seize proof. We need to keep all of our lands. We're not going to be able to play a turn 1 grazer, which is unfortunate. But we are going to be able to play a turn 2 grazer, which then sets us up for like a drawn splunking. We really want one of these 2 cards in our hand, so I think what we do is we put back the scape. I think we want... This is the difficult part, because if we put back the abrade, we don't have an answer to the oven, although the oven wasn't really a big problem with our deck, so then maybe we shouldn't sideboard both abrades. But I think what we want to do here is put back a Scapeshift and put back an abrade. Wish represents one of any number of cards from our sideboard, so I think we keep that one instead. And if they thought seize away the wish, that's cool for us. I forgot to yield before taking a drink there. But the deck it has some interesting lines. It's definitely about as complicated as I thought it was going to be to pilot. I didn't think I was going to be the greatest pilot at doing this, and I was going to make some mistakes, and we saw some of that happen in the matchup against the Phoenix deck. Or sorry, not the Phoenix deck, the Selesnya Angels deck that we played in the second match. But some of these hands are going to be a little bit clunky, a little bit slow. If we get hit with a second thought seize, this is pretty bad, but it looks like they're just doing cat oven shenanigans. Oh, actually, not even cat. They might just be holding up a fatal push, because a boreal grazer is a problem for them. It kind of is. Okay, cool. So let's go temple first, see what's on top of our library. Stomping ground. So stomping ground, is that where we want to be? It gets us an additional mana, but I think we're trying to just dig towards some of our action now. So we'll put that on the bottom. Play our boreal grazer. Put cataracts into play. And now, because at that point we would have drawn and then played Splunking, drawn an additional card, and then put 2 lands into play. But I kind of want to be able to draw 2 non-land cards potentially from this spot. Hey, Fable's not bad. What do we got? All right, we wind up drawing the... We wind up drawing a land card anyway, but this still lets us dig an additional card deeper. This is pretty good now. Now we have a wish. We have a splunking. So I forgot to play the forest for a turn, but that's fine. So if we do this, we have 1 floating mana. If we draw a... Because we still need to pay for our Scapeshift, unfortunately. So we're still a little bit far away from doing that. Opponent still revealed Gigantha, so they don't have a sideboard Shieldred or anything like that in their deck. Colgan's Command. Discard a card, deal 2 damage. Okay. So now I'm like okay with keeping that land in my hand. Now, thankfully the World Tree is not legendary. So we can play a World Tree. We can wish for an additional land, but what does that do for us? If we wish for a land, we can't play the World Tree. That gives us 2 mana. It's not really where we want to be. But the only other thing we can really play is a Tormod's Crypt, and our opponent really isn't pressuring our life total at all, so I think we're just passing, right? because we don't quite have enough mana to do anything. So as a mulligan to 5, we still have a decent amount of land. We just unfortunately don't have a lot that we're doing, which is where I think like some additional card velocity would be pretty good. Okay, Mayhem Devil's pretty bad for us because that's going to significantly increase the clock, especially with this flipped reflection of Kiki Jiki. So I think what we want to do is find a land now. That actually might not work out for us because if we find a land, we tap 5 for 5 mana, including the Cascading Cataract. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be Wish, and we can't actually Brotherhood's End. So no, that land is not good for us actually. Well, we're not going to not play our Glimpse the Core. So the one thing that we could have done instead is play Cinder Vines and like blow up the reflection. Could we have? No, because we're still 1 mana short because we can't actually activate the Cinder Vines. It just comes into play. So we played a land for turn already, correct? We have not. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'd be 6. So we actually don't kill them even with a Sunken Citadel then. So I think we're just on the pray we live another turn plan, but there's going to be a lot of Mayhem Devils in our future. Because this turn they can make 1 copy of Mayhem Devil. They'll have 6 damage from treasure, 10 total from ruins. They can sack something with Witch's Oven. Oh, that's real bad for us. They could sack something with Witch's Oven, so that would be 12 damage, and then 18 exactly attacking with the Mayhem Devils, 20 with the Goblin Shaman. So pretty sure we're dead here. Opponent's deck did the things this game. But they also tapped their Ramanamp Ruins, so we might not be dead. Okay, sacrificing something to Deadly Dispute creates an additional treasure. So now we are on dead. If our opponent just sacrifices everything, we're dead. Yeah. Okay, concede the game. Okay, so those are braids. Having to be put back on a mulligan to 5 weren't the greatest. But I don't think that there's really anything else we really want to change. I just think it might be being on the play is better. Obviously not mulliganing to 5 would be great. Having turns where I don't forget to play that land. I mean, it did mind us saving one of our spells for a little bit, but still playing sloppy on my end. It is 2 a.m. by me, unfortunately. I had to record this in the wee hours of the evening since I wasn't able to do so earlier in the day. Okay, so this hand is not great, so this is just a mulligan. This hand is very similar to that hand, but it does have Sunken Citadel, the potential for a 5th land with Glimpse the Core, and we can put back Ohiraxanil. So we'll keep this, we'll put back Ohiraxanil, and we'll pray that we don't get turn 1 Thoughtseize for the 3rd game in a row. Because I think that's all we could really do. All right, we'll play Sunken Citadel on red and pass the turn. Pass the turn. We don't want to play it on green Sorry, putting my hand warmers away because it's chilly at nighttime here. But I'm putting it on red because we don't want to put it on green since we have double forest and world tree. So don't need to do that. We won't be able to actually murder unless we draw Splunking. Oh, yeah. Our opponent did not turn 1 Thoughtseize us. Doesn't mean they don't have turn 2 Thoughtseize, however. And now we can actually cast this wish, which is something we learned the hard way from our last game. So, glimpse the core. Get our forest, and cool. Okay. So from this angle, we need to get up to 6 mana to Scapeshift for a kill the next turn because we don't have the Splunking to have everything enter on tap. Oh, they do have Inti in this version. I like Inti in Sacrifice. But we want to get up to... Oh, Porphyros is not what we want. Not where we want to be. Okay, I think then what I want to do is wish for a land and play the land. Mostly because we want to get up to 6 so that when we get rid of everything, we'll have 3 Sunken Citadels, 2 Echoing Deeps, and a World Tree, so we can untap and win that way. So let's wish for... Doesn't really matter. I think I'm going to find Cavalier Souls just because I haven't gotten it yet. And we'll put it on God. Making sure I played my lands. This could prompt them to Thoughtseize away a Porphyros. This could prompt them to... I mean, Thoughtseize on our Scapeshift is the worst thing in the world for us right now. So we need to fade Thoughtseize for 2 more turns and fade Dying. I don't think the deck can kill us in 2 turns, but I mean, going something like Mayhem Devil into Oven Cat, Unlucky Witness for Velocity. There's the Witch's Oven. Here comes Cat. Oh, Crocs. Ooh. We want all of our lands, so we're going to have to discard this Porphyros. Which means we're not going to be able to kill them outright. And it is going to take like an extra turn. Okay, second Scapeshift is fantastic. They don't have enough to escape Croxa. They may think that we're just on all lands, but now we have redundant Scapeshift. It'd be really bad if they go Thoughtseize Kulagon's Command. But in that case, we lose a Scapeshift, we discard a land, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 21 remaining lands in our deck. Mayhem Devil's a pretty good hit for them there. I have no blockers. I'll go down to 13. They also have a Den of the Bugbear on the battlefield. So they go Mayhem Devil here. Inti Mayhem Devil next turn. This is 8 damage plus 4 is 12. Sacrificing one thing is exactly 13. So this could be sketchy for us. Ooh, we hit one of our Sunken Citadels too. That means we can only find 2 Sunken Citadels and 2 Echoing Deeps. Was there a world where I could have just Scapeshifted last turn for Sunken Citadel times 3 and a World Tree? That could have been the play, and we might have lived. So if I do it this way now, I think what I have to do is we find a Radiant Fountain on top of everything. So if I do this for 5, we find 2 Sunken Citadels. May I do it for 5? We find 2 Sunken Citadels. No, I have to do it for 6. For 2 Sunken Citadels, 2 Echoing Deeps, a World Tree, and a Radiant Fountain. I think that's what I have to do. I probably should have done it last turn. I was so focused on finding absolutely all of the lands that I missed a potential lethal. Oh, and I had to sacrifice because of the Mayhem Devil. So yeah, it's a good game. Okay, cool. I punted that matchup. That was something I should have been aware of, but again, inexperience with the deck means that I was not. So we wound up losing a matchup that we probably could have won. Because looking back on that one, if we had just Scapeshifted last turn, sacrificed 4 of our lands, kept one of our Sunken Citadels, gotten the other Sunken Citadels and a World Tree. Sacrificed 5 of our lands, gotten the 3 Sunken Citadels, a World Tree, and an Echoing Depths. We still would have been 1 land short, actually. So I don't think that actually was the play. But very difficult choices with some of these lines to the deck. And like I said, not the most experienced pilot. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but this is definitely showcasing my my small brain plays. This one, unfortunately, not a keep. We do have the Arboreal Grazer, but there's no action for until Porphyros, which I don't think is where we want to be. We do have a Temple for Scry, though, and we do have all the lands we need to cast Porphyros, but it's never going to be a creature with this, so we have much better 6s, which this is not. So we'll go to 5. This is also not really where we want to be, so I guess we're going to 4 and keeping. So we will put back Solemn, we'll put back Pit Offering since there's nothing we can use, and we'll put back Wish, and we'll just play a turn 3 Splunking, I guess. This is the first time we're also not on the play, so neat little note there. Okay, turn 1 Beseiju, so could be Angels again, could be Mono Green, could be an Elf deck. We'll play a Radiant Fountain and pass. That deck has a lot of interesting lines, though. So, oh, it is Mono Green. Cool. Deck has a lot of interesting lines, and I'm liking it. It's definitely a deck that I think I would need to get like at least 10 leagues in with to really have like a full understanding of what my best positions to win are. Like that turn with the Scapeshift. I mean, Scapeshifting the turn before protects us from Mayhem Devil as well. So that's something in that specific matchup with Rakdos Sack I need to keep in mind is that Scapeshift kills me. Like, I literally kill myself with my combo. So I should probably be looking to set myself up for small turns rather than going for a big all-out turn, which may be the way that you go for some other matchups as well. Control matchups, whenever they tap out and they don't have mana available for counter magic, that's what you're going to want to be doing, because you're going to want to be trying to smack them with your land-activated ability, which you can't counter. You can Tishana's Tidebender it, but hey, we're not playing Modern, so not a lot of people are going to be main decking that card. Cool. So our opponent's doing the mono green thing while I was still bad beatsing about last game. That'll let us do some cool things with our Splunking, which will then let us play an Arboreal Grazer. I don't need to pay 2 life, but I will have it come into play untapped. So now we have a blocker. And we've set ourselves up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, which is more than enough to Scapeshift ourselves into victory with 4 Sunken Citadels still in our deck. Vivian Arcbow Ranger. Got a big old Elvish Mystic rumbling, stumbling, and bumbling down into the red zone for 3 damage. Alright, Glimpse the Core does not do a whole lot here. It gets a Forest out of our deck, however, which I think is just good enough. Just thin the deck a little bit more. And our mono green opponent is not going to be interacting with us whatsoever. They may put a Damping Sphere post sideboard or something along those lines so that we are hindered for our multi-spell turns, but like our wish turns and stuff. But for our standard plan, not the worst thing in the world. Cityscape Leveler could be something that is annoying because it could get rid of our splunking. Is that what's going to be happening here? Because that would be pretty bad. Oh, Tyrannix Rex. Okay. That's not the worst thing in the world. It's a toxic 8/8 with haste. Basically means that we need to draw our Scapeshift or die. If we draw a Wish, we have enough mana to cast the Scapeshift from our sideboard as well, so we're still fine. Blocking here doesn't actually change the toxic clock. Oh, it's only toxic 4. So blocking here, yeah, it doesn't do anything because it only needs to deal 1 damage for toxic to happen, right? Yeah. Deal combat damage by this creature, get 4 poison counters. So I'll just wait. All right, Wish or Scapeshift? Neither. I will have it enter on tap, sure. We could potentially still have 1 turn left to live. Scapeshift with it on top. All right. So if there's, let's see, Lair of the Hydra activating kills us. Oh, okay. So they're going to play an additional creature. Is it a haste creature? Oh, Voracious Hydra kills us. Unlucky. Let's say we're also dead to Lair of the Hydra because this Elvish Mystic is a 3/3. Okay, so our deck was just a little bit too slow with that mulligan to 4, finding double splunking. Or finding splunking and pretty much nothing else. Right, that was our mulligan to 4 game, right? Yeah, we mulliganed all the way down to 4, and we were 1 turn off actually killing our opponent there. So looking at this, not sure if Pithing Needle is where we want to be. I mean, it shuts off Vivian, it shuts off Kiora. Maybe we just put it in because I don't think Golos is going to be in a great spot. Solemn is interestingly in a pretty decent spot because it blocks well here. So I think I'm going to keep the Solemns in. A Braid kills their elves, but I think on the play, we're not really trying to be the reactive deck. We just want to kind of be able to combo our things. So we'll put the Pithing Needles in as hate pieces and kind of go on with our day. Where are we at here? Well, there's our Pithing Needle, but we can't cast any other cards in our hands. This is a mulligan. This is a turn 2 Arboreal Grazer, puts 2 lands into play, and we have 2 of our gods in our hand, one of them being Porphyro. So this is a mulligan, unfortunately. This is also not a great hand. We have 3/4 drops. We could put our god back, and we can put our Scapeshift back and just play a turn 4 Solemn, which doesn't seem as good as that splunking hand that we started with last game, even on a mulligan to 4. So we're going down to 4 again. And this, we're going to have to keep this, but it is not a great hand. We put back a Solemn. We'll put back a Pit Offering. So what we can do here is we can Sunken Citadel on red. We can World Tree. We can eventually wish for a land if we draw one, which gives us Scapeshift. So I think we put the Solemn back and keep this. And we just hope we draw out. I did mention that we're going to be mulliganing more aggressively with this deck to try to find some of our low mana, mana ramp spells, and we're sticking to the game plan. We saw that a mulligan to 4 last game was almost good enough to beat the mono green deck. It would have been great if they didn't have the Tyrannus Rex doming us for a lot. And see, now we have a stomping ground here. So we're going to be able to play our wish a turn later, because I'm not going to do the thing again where we wish for a land and we can't do anything because we played our land for the turn. But we have a really bad Cultivate. I don't remember what the other 3 mana ramp spells were. Ooh, double Wolf Willow Haven is pretty good for our opponent. What do we got? Okay, we got another wish, so we'll have that come into play tapped and pass the turn. We're just playing Lengo. We're a Gruul control deck this game. Our opponent, however, looks like that they are about to pop off because they have 1, 2, 3 devotion currently, which is pretty good. Four devotion. Awkward thing there is that I think they actually might be getting more mana out of just tapping the Wolfalo Havens and the Elf. I think our opponent realized that their last card in hand. So our opponent's also on this is like a very explosive start for them, obviously, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. They have a bunch of mana and potentially a payoff that we saw them trying to tap for, but we'll have to see. So this splunking changes our plans a little bit. I think, because what we can do is we can wish for World Tree. That'll give us 4 mana. Or we can play the Splunking, see if we draw a card, and if we draw a land, then we can Scapeshift next turn, potentially. I like the Splunking line a little bit more. There we go. And now if we draw a land that is not a Sunken Citadel, the Tyrannus Rex comes back. If we draw a land that is not a Sunken Citadel, we pay 4, we float 2, we get 5 lands, we get 3 Sunken Citadels and an Echoing Deeps and a World Tree, and then we dome our opponent. Let's go. Yes. Before that, let's float this. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Comes into play as a Sunken Citadel. So we need white, we need blue, we need black, and we have red, so we need green. I will have all of these come into play untapped. And then activate our World Tree. White, blue, black, green. And I would like to play any number of God cards. No more gods. So I'll keep an Okirax Flanil, a Porphyros God of the Forge, and there we go. All we had to do was mulligan for a combo hand. combo hand, right? The hand that was legitimately just lands. And we drew out of it. The deck is very resilient, or not resilient, that's not the right word for it. The deck is very consistent in what it's going to be doing. And if our opponent is not going to be interacting with us because they are on a non-interactive deck, like the mono green deck, then they literally are just racing us. And if we draw our Scapeshift and we draw a Splunking, we are a faster deck. If we don't draw the Splunking, we're probably a slower deck, especially on the play. Our opponent also kept a hand that they had a lot of fast mana, but they did not have the ability to play their 7-drop on turn 4 or whatever it was. And they wound up being 1 turn too slow for us, which was exactly what happened to us in game number 1. So this is kind of the ships passing in the night style of Magic that some people complain about with Pioneer. I do think that there's a little bit more interaction here. There's obviously things you could do on the battlefield with combat, and there are lines that I could take with Wish that I could wipe my opponent's board to interact with them before they actually kill me. So I think that this is a little bit more interactive than some people give it credit for, but it is basically a race to see which of our combo decks is going to be doing this, even though their deck is basically a big old beatdown deck, right? They're an aggro deck at this point. They're not really a combo deck. But little side note aside, this is a non-keepable hand. Let's see if we can actually get a four-card hand. So this is interesting because we can glimpse on turn 2. That'll give us a Solemn on turn 3. And then Solemn finds us our 5th land, potentially 6th land if we're drawing out. And then Wish only needs 1 more to Scapeshift for a slow victory. So I think this one might be good enough in this matchup. They are on the play, which makes me a little bit afraid. But this also gets me up to potentially, if I draw 1 more land, the 6th land here, potentially a red mana. Hopefully a red mana means that I can board wipe small creatures from their deck. So I'm going to keep this one, put Ohir Ashlaniel back, and then Prage. Like that's the best thing we can do here. Okay, they have the elf. It's not a Oath of Nissa opener, unfortunately. So they are off to the races. Probably should have played the Sheltered Thicket that turn because I could have shocked the Stomping Ground in, and Sheltered Thicket will always enter the battlefield tap. So that's a little bit of a misstep for me. Second elf. Oh, they don't have a Wolfwillow Haven, nor do they have a Oath of Nissa. Unless it's a post-combat Oath of Nissa. No. Okay. Arboreal Grazer and Glimpse the Core basically do the same thing. However, Arboreal Grazer lets me make up for that Sheltered Thicket play. Because now I can play the Sheltered Thicket taps and then still get the 3 mana. And our opponent is honestly on a... Ooh, okay, so... What is this telling me? If they play Voracious Hydra, enters the battlefield, X +1/+1 counters on it. And Voracious Hydra can fight a creature I don't control. But that would be 3 mana, so that would only be 1. I think our opponent is just trying to push damage here because they know that they don't have a big turn or anything. Yeah, okay, cool. They're just trying to push damage. Mirrex is neat. We're going to play Solemn. We're going to play Mirrex. We're going to play Solemn. We're going to find one of our forests. I would like to use Solemn's ability. I will find a... Is it better to find a mountain? No, it's better to find a forest at this point, I think, because we have the 2 that we would need in case we want a board wipe. There's our Solemn. Cool. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can glimpse the core next turn to find our 7th land. Should then be Wish, Scapeshift, set our... Oh! Creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from the graveyards or libraries. Well, that's pretty bad for us. But it's a good thing we still have our Braids in our sideboard. And we have this Boseiju in our hand. Double glimpse the core. That's neat. So we'll glimpse the core. If we double glimpse the core, we cannot Boseiju the Grafdigger's Cage at end of turn. However, that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana still. Let's take a look at our sideboard again. So... because we played the first Glimpse of the Core, we can't just wish for a Braid. I still think we're on the wish for Scapeshift plan, because wishing for Scapeshift lets us search for lands, and this only cares about casting spells from graveyards or libraries, and creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. So we can set up our mana and then Boseiju, so we don't need to play the Boseiju right away. We also, that way we can still wish for a Scapeshift turn. So we will play another Glimpse the Core, find our forest, and now do we attack? Yeah, let's get a little frisky. Opponent can double block if they want, but I don't think they're going to. Tyrannix Rex. Yep, there it is again. Followed up by a Lair of the Hydra. Okay. Let's just block. We'll still take the 4 toxic damage, but this keeps us at a somewhat higher life total. And now we get punished for attacking with the Solemn Simulacrum, which is unfortunate. Alright, so 3 mana for Wish, 4 mana for Scapeshift. And then we have this Stomping Ground. Because we only need to find the 4 Sunken Citadels. Because we find 4 Sunken Citadels, a World Tree, and an... Right, so then how much mana do we have left over if we do that? So I'm trying to figure out, so we need to have, because we can just do this now. So this is probably entering the battlefield tapped, because I don't, we can't cast the Boseiju off of it anyway. But what I could do is, so I'm not going to be floating any extra mana this way. So I think I just do 1, 2, 3 for Wish. I cast the Scapeshift. Then I sacrifice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 4 Sunken Citadels. This is 4 Sunken Citadels, World Tree. And then I have the 2 extra mana, but one of these is going to wind up being a Radiant Fountain, just so I can gain some life. So I need Radiant Fountain, I need World Tree. Oh, the Radiant Fountain will tap for any color of mana. Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel, Sunken Citadel. Okay, so I need the colors my deck cannot produce. And then we'll do red. That gains us 2 life. Cool. Stomping Grounds enters the battlefield tapped. And then we have Solemn to block Tyrannix Rex damage or just block Lair of the Hydra outright. Because this is going to be a lot of mana, right? Unless there's a second Tyrannix Rex. In that case, it doesn't really matter. Because now they just attack with the 2 L's and it's lethal. Yeah, because this is 16 right here. I can only block 2 of this. So yeah, GG. They were faster than us this game. Yeah, just by 1 HP. So if I didn't attack with the Solemn last turn, I would have been at 2 higher life, and I would have been at exactly 1. So I got hard punished for attacking with the Solemn there. Unfortunate. So we did learn that we basically can't get aggressive in that matchup, and that we're just playing for our combo. The Grafdigger's Cage did a good job of just stalling us for that 1 turn, and attacking with the Solemn killed us there. So we learned that we just need to stick to playing our combo, and in that specific mono green matchup that we just need to play the clock game, the race game. So we're learning a lot with this deck. It's an error occurred. Please contact game support. That's not fun. Let's try that again. But yeah, so we've learned that we need to be a little bit more conservative with our attacking. In that case, like, we still had all of our Perforoses in the graveyard, in the deck, so it wasn't like we were going to be missing out on the potential for damage, and it wasn't like they were gaining any life. So I think that was just a misplay of aggression on my part, but we're learning. And we saw how the deck on all of those games, 2 mulligans to 4, and then a mulligan to 6 in a hand that I wasn't sure was going to be fast enough when we were on the draw. If we're on the play, even with that misplay of mine, we win that game. If we're on the draw without the misplay, we win that game. Without that misattack, we win the game. I should have been thinking about the Tyrannus Rex. A lot of the lists that I'm seeing from Mono Green have them all on the sideboard, and I know that they Vivian'd them into game number 1. So I was thinking like, oh, they don't have 4 in their main deck, but I guess they just put them all in their main deck instead of keeping 1 in their sideboard, or they just got really lucky and they drew them. So their deck just so happened to be the faster one, especially on the play. We could have actually died a lot sooner too to their deck, since they kind of went elf, not do anything for those 2 turns. They pushed damage with their elves instead of being able to develop their board. So like, we kind of got a little bit of extra life in that game because of that. So far, the deck has been difficult. Obviously, it's a 1-4 league for me. Not the greatest showing to my first full playthrough on my YouTube channel, but it's still doing some stuff for us. I mean, we're learning some lines. We're seeing how Klothys interacts with some of the top meta decks. We're seeing that our Scapeshifts don't have to be for game-ending combos, and that we can set up combos for the next turn like we were trying to do in that mono green game, like we should have done in the Rakdos sacrifice game before we killed ourselves to sacrifice triggers, which was kind of funny. But we're also taking a look that the Sunken Citadels are very, very key to the deck functioning. Drawing 2 of them before you are able to Scapeshift things away, or drawing 2 of them as part of your 5 to 6 lands off of your Scapeshift casting is really bad. Because at that point, then you need to be able to have the extra mana to float. You need to be able to have that 5th mana to float, because you need the 2 coming in from the Sunken Citadel, and then you need to have 2 Echoing Depths, which means that you can't set up a Scapeshift. You need to have a Splunking in play and just do it right there, because you're not going to have the extra mana. If you have 5 mana, 2 of them are Sunken Citadels, you can't set it up for next turn, because you're going to have 4 lands and a World Tree, which is only going to give you 8 mana. So you need 2 additional lands after that then. So I think that's where my thought process with the deck is kind of getting stuck, is just the fact that with the extra Sunken Citadels in play, you need to kind of all in with your Scapeshift. If those extra Sunken Citadels are in your deck, you can set up your Scapeshift over the course of a couple of turns. It's actually really good to just have 1 Sunken Citadel in play, because then it gives you the option of doing both. You can have 4 mana in the Sunken Citadel with a Splunking out and immediately kill your opponent with your gods raining down from the skies of the World Tree branches, or you can do the slow roll and set it up for the following turn, because then you have 10 mana for your activated land ability in the 5 copies of Sunken Citadel you have on the battlefield. So learning that that's really important. The Echoing Deeps might actually be something as a 3 of. So if we do have to sacrifice 2 Sunken Citadels, we can still get 5 of those. That's probably something I would do, and maybe cut the Pit Offerings, because that hasn't necessarily been the graveyard hate land that we want it to be here. We have, gotten Klothys out in one of the games where it could have been, but so we didn't necessarily need it. And heck, maybe we go up to 28 lands even and cut one of these Goloses or the Solemn Simulacrums that have been pretty lackluster so far. Oh, we lost our second die roll. And we lost our big card. We'll get that back in a sec. There we go. Actually surprised I'm able to keep up the conversation for a 2-hour league like this. But I'm actually happy that the games are progressing at a relatively quick pace. Besides our first game with our Phoenix opponent being a little bit slow to the draw. 2 hours for a league is pretty average. So take a look at this hand. Not enough lands to cast anything, and not enough things to search for more lands. So this is a hard mulligan. Opponent has not revealed a companion either. Okay, so this is a borderline hand, because we do have one of our gods in our hand, which is not great, but we could put it back. But if our opponent is on Phoenix or something, the Klothys is actually pretty good. So I think what I'm going to do is, with a Splunking in hand to draw us a card, and with a Sunken Citadel and an Echoing Deeps, which isn't the greatest in the world for us, but is still passable, I think I'm going to keep this, put our Golos back, which I have not been impressed with Golos so far. If they play, I'm going to say they're on Rakdos, though. This is pretty bad for us. Oh, they're on Prowess. Okay. Or maybe Red Deck wins. So this hand is entirely too slow for this matchup. And we drew the second Sunken Citadel. So this is exactly what I was just talking about. Come back to haunt us. Put that one on green. Echoing Deeps does not come into play tapped, right? No, it enters the battlefield tapped as a copy of any card. Okay. So we have 3 tap lands. We'll probably wind up playing Sunken Citadel number 2, and then our Boseiju or our Silken Zon, sorry, our Silken Zon for our Splunking. So even though we're not winning, I'm still very much enjoying the tools that this deck has to offer. Did I not yield until next end step? My bad. Sorry, opponent. Distracted. Talking to YouTube. No spells, so this is light up the stage. Yep. play with fire, running up runes. So Den of the Bugbear. So they have no reason to cast that play with fire now. Okay, so we'll just play Sunken Citadel on red and pass. So our opponent's probably going to play... Oh, they're playing the play with fire now. I guess they want the scry more. I was going to say, they could play with fire now to manipulate the top card of their deck with the scry. Or they could save it to get an additional damage with the prowess trigger. And they kept it on top. Cool. So they liked it. Oh, they're playing a forest too. No, Ramen and Bones. Ooh, players can't gain life. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So Rampaging Ferocity is actually annoying because we're going to be putting 6 gods into the battlefield. So that's 6 damage, which means that we need to be at 7 life in order to combo. Or combo kill, which is a little frustrating. But Klothys is actually a very good card here because we can't gain life, but we can potentially block ad nauseum. If we get rid of the Rampaging Frost, we can start building our life total back up. There's a couple of things we can do. World Tree entering the battlefield tapped is not one of them, however. So we'll play our Splunking. Draw our pathetic card, Yugi Boy. Then we will put our World Tree onto the battlefield. We'll have it enter the battlefield untapped. And we pass. So now we have access to... Oh, Hirax O'Neill himself. Oh, that's cool. I did see the mono red deck with O'Hare and Rampaging Ferocidon because O'Hare, like what we're doing with our gods, will pump all the damage up to 4, which means that Rampaging Ferocidon will deal 4 damage. So 5 gods, because we have Klothys, 5 gods coming into play will be dealing 20 damage to us. So we will die as well. Especially because I believe it's active player, non-active player, active player. So I think we just die first. Oh man, another Sunken Citadel. I legit just talked about how bad it is to draw multiples of this card, and here we are drawing multiples of this card. All right, so we're going to take 4 for our Solemn Simulacrum too. Ugh. Man, can't even block the Ferocidon because of Menace. I legitimately think we just might be dead because we can't Beseiju anything. We can play the Beseiju. Play our Glimpse the Core. And pass. So we are potentially dead because a removal spell or an additional creature that deals 2 damage kills us. There we go. We are looking pretty dead. Oh, Kumano's going to deal 4. Blech. I was debating between doing the Gruul Scapeshift deck or this version of the mono red deck because this version of the mono red deck looks gas. Like really, really good. All right. So we want to Braids. Golos, very, very slow. Solemn Simulacrum, very, very slow in this matchup. We don't want to be playing additional creatures that are going to be killing us with the Rampaging Ferocidon. And we actually want ways to kill said Rampaging Ferocidon. So I think we put in at least one of these burn down the houses. We put in our braids. And we still have 5 cards that we could potentially put in. I want to keep a Burn Down the House and the Brotherhood's End in the sideboard so that we can wish for it, but I don't really know if we have the time to get all the way up to 8 mana. We may have the time to get up to 6 mana on the play, so I'm going to leave that one in the sideboard. Quakebringer doesn't really do a heck of a lot. We still have 4 slots. The Valakut Exploration... I mean, maybe we just want the card velocity. I don't think this is like this is just a fast matchup, and we don't have very many anti-fast cards. We don't have ways to, outside of Burn Down the House, we don't have ways to get rid of opposing Ohirit Ashonils, or Athonils. We don't have ways to really kill off. Maybe we could play Cinder Vines in case they can be casting a lot of non-creature spells, but I believe this deck kind of has like a pretty even split in the spells and creatures it's going to be casting. Yeah, it's like 20 to 13 or something like that, or 20 to 17 with the Kumanos. So the Cinder Vines is maybe not the where we want to be at either. I mean, maybe it's just we wind up putting back in some Solemns and some Goloses because we don't have much else. Maybe we want the Brotherhood's End in our list just to have it. Let's try that and cut the other Golos because we're never casting it. We can try. Being on the play is probably pretty good. Having a keepable hand is probably pretty good. This is 3 mana when Wish. Not good. Mulligan. This is where we want to be. A Boreal Grazer is a pretty good card to stem the aggression here. We can actually cast it on turn 1 off of this Mirrex. So we'll do that and probably put back a copy of the World Tree because we can then glimpse the core on turn 2, get up to 4 mana to play Solemn Simulacrum. So I think that's it. I think we put back a World Tree. Man, what are they bringing in against us? Roast doesn't do anything. Rolling Vortex might be pretty good. Because Rolling Vortex will deal 1 damage, prevents us from getting life, and whenever we cast a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, we take 5 damage. We're not really playing any free spells. Our Wish, as I've learned the hard way, makes us pay for everything, so I don't think that's going to be coming in. Hazoret, just to keep up the pace of the match, will probably be coming in for them, and that's another thing that we can't really get rid of because we have no exile or removal. All of our stuff is direct damage, and Hazoret is one of those gods that is indestructible. Unlicensed Terrace might come in just to get rid of some of the cards that we have in our graveyards. It actually shuts off our Echoing Deeps, which makes our ability to one-shot with our World Tree combo that much harder. So we will keep this. We're putting back our World Tree. Go Mirrex into Grazer. And we'll play a Temple. Stomping Ground. Put you on the bottom. I kind of want to... I'm already going to have a guaranteed 4th land here, so I kind of want to be finding Scapeshift, Splunking, those kinds of cards instead. Haha! Definitely not Monkey. Oh look, there's our Splunking. So we'll play our World Tree, and just about to feel tapped, unfortunately. Glimpse the Core, Forest... Cool. And so next turn, we're probably slamming Solemn before they can cast their Rampaging Ferocidon. Gets things out of there. I don't know if this deck is going to be playing Grafdigger's Cage. It's a possibility. Second Swift Spear. Cool. They could be playing Grafdigger's Cage, which would be problematic for us. This looks like that they're trying to push light up the stage. I will probably block anyway. This Grazer might not be doing too much else. If they want to burn a burn spell on it, by all means, I'll save the damage early on. Wild Slash. Cool. So they use a burn spell on my Grazer. I take 2 instead of taking potentially 6. Okay, there's a burn down the house, not the greatest draw, but throw out our Solemn. Solemn can actually find us a mountain, so we can actually clear the board if they play Rampaging Frosted on next turn, which is really good. So I think that's going to be what we do here. Burn down the house will then also draw us a card. So find us a mountain and pass the turn. So we're not in awful shape right now. Obviously not the best, but not bad. Land Rampaging Froston is what I want my opponent to do here, so I can profit from a board wipe. Ooh, Chandra Dress to kill. That's also pretty good, because we can get rid of that as well. Owie. Light up the stage is really good here. All right, let's see. Oh, double mountain. Okay, phew. I was like, oh, they might just have spells to follow up our burn down the house, but we're okay. So we block. Draw us a card. Prevent more damage. I would like to use Solemn Simulacrum's ability. Sunken Citadel. Cool. Orhiraxanel. Not quite what we want to do, but... So now this turn we have to take a turn off to burn down the house, but that's fine. Just reset their board with 2 mountains in the exile zone and potentially 2 dead cards in their hand. Playing the control style deck again. Chandra Tortured Defiance. Really good card for them in this spot. Like, the best card for them in this spot. We're taking 2 for a Ramanump Ruins. That's... yeah, they don't even have to play it. Basically what the card does in and of itself. Orhiraxanil, however, makes it deal a lot more damage. Okay, so we can... Splunking here, and then play our Orhiraxanil as well. And if we draw into a Scapeshift, we win the game. Don't like having a second Orhiraxanil, unfortunately. So now we have 4 gods left in our deck. So this is not... 4 gods left in our deck will be... $32. Playing against Chandra Tribal. So go to 11. Are they going to play their own Orhiraxanil? No, Soulscar Mage. Are they going to burn away our god? Ooh, Roast. They did put Roast in. Okay, okay. Okay, so we have a land. How much land do we have now? Let's count the lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Because this will tap for 2. This is 2, 4, 5, 6 for one of these, 7, 8, 9. So play the land. Player Ohira Sanil. And pass. Unfortunately, our Mirrex Mites can't block. But if they burn away Ohir with Chandra, which they are not choosing to do, we get another land, and then we can activate our World Tree. So we want Wish, we want Scapeshift, we want land. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. Monastery Swift Spear. Decent card. So we're at 9. Our opponent has 1 card in hand, so they can't burn us to death here. Make a Mite. Land? Land. Alright. Let's activate 2. White. White. Blue. Blue. Black. Black. We still have 2 Porphyroses. And we have an Ohira Sanil. So those Porphyroses will deal 8 by themselves. Another Ohira Sanil will deal 8. And then the Klothys, the final god in our deck, will deal the final 8 damage. 24. So the burn down the house was really, really key because it just slowed our opponent's game plan down immensely. 1, 2, a 3, a 4. I'll keep a Porphyros, and I will keep the non-summoning sick Ohira Sanil. Right, so here's 6 triggers of 4 damage each. 24. That's even better than 24. 25. Which is not how much damage we deal, because we can't do 1 damage here. Unless we attack with this Might. There we go. Now, it gets a lot harder because we are on the draw. And we are still against the aggressive mono red deck. So, again, not entirely where we want to be. And I don't think we really have any other sort of cards we can sideboard in here. I think we just kind of have to roll it back with what we've got. I mean, we saw Chandra's, so maybe we put in some Pithing Needles instead of a Golos. Like, we put 1 Pithing Needle in and take a Golos out. We could potentially name Chandra Dress to Kill, which I think is the one that's a little bit more annoying for us. We could take out a Solemn Simulacrum if we want, which seemed to be okay in that matchup. But I think we just roll it like this. I'm sideboarding out all the Goloses because Golos does not seem like a card that we're going to be casting on the draw specifically. If we are able to draw our Burn Down the House or our Brotherhood's End in a situation like we did last game, sure. Maybe we get a chance to cast a Golos. Like, maybe we'll be able to live long enough in order to do that. But I don't think we're going to be really hard casting Golos anytime soon in these games. This is a 1-land hand. We have had so many 1 and 2 land hands in a 27 land deck. It's been a little silly, but we're mulliganing this. This is a pretty solid hand because although we do have 3 enters the battlefield tapped lands, I can put back Wish and then keep a Braid for one of your early creatures. If I draw an untapped land, that also means on curve a Braid or Splunking. I think Arboreal Grazer hands are obviously better, but the amount of work that a direct damage or damage dealing board wipe did last game, I want to keep the hand with the Abrade. So in this case, we put back Wish, and we hope that we draw cards, and we draw 24 lands in our deck. We draw into castable cards. This has to be turn 1 Sunken Citadel for red, however, otherwise we're not going to be able to do anything. Unless we draw a mountain, in which case then it's probably Sunken Citadel for green. Ooh, okay. Almost clicked the green because I said that last, but Arboreal Grazer without an untapped land on turn 1. If this is the light up the stage, it's pretty bad for us because that's a lot of velocity coming away. Okay, it's just a play with fire or wild slash, so still 6 damage, not great. But we're probably, if we draw an untapped land, we're burning away the Soulscar Mage. Otherwise, we're just playing Arboreal Grazer and passing. We have to just play Arboreal Grazer and pass. We cannot because we played this on red. I am going to double check something. Chandra Dress to Kill. Yeah, that's real bad for us. So we have the full set of Stomping Grounds. We have a Sheltered Thicket, 2 Temple of Abandon. There might even be a world where we need to have Pathways in this deck. With the light up the stage, finding double mountain again. Okay. This is an untapped land. It is not. Ooh, this is really hurting us, all these enter the battlefield tap lands now. Because before we couldn't play the Grazer to play an additional land that would have given us Pithing Needle and Abrade this turn. That would have shut off Chandra. Our opponent has 1 card left in hand, so what we can do is we can Pithing Needle Chandra Dress to Kill, and then we could be looking at 2 damage. We could be looking at 4 damage. We could, in theory, be looking at 4 plus 2 from a burn spell. There's Play with Fires, there's Wild Slashes. Monstrous Rage would be really bad for us. Kumano's okay. So I think what we have to... And we don't even have a 4th land to really make this Grazer, like, do something for our deck. So I guess we're doing Chandra Dress to Kill. So that way they can't exile the top card of their library. Then we play an Arboreal Grazer and pass. We have a blocker. We shut off their Chandra and hope that they're just... Hope that they just don't have much. Yeah, that's it. So then, even if we find a land next turn, we have to probably Abrade away the Soulscar Mage. Ooh, Chandra Torch of Defiance. Oh, Soken's on. So we're taking 3, go down to 4. Board wipe doesn't even really save us here. Can't even cast a board wipe if we wanted to. All right, technically not dead. The best kind of alive. They're down to 1 card in hands. If it's a burn spell, we go to 1. And I don't think we have a winning line from there. We can, if it's an untapped land, we can maybe Scapeshift into some stuff. We have to block the Monastery, Swift Spear. Okay. So we go to 1. Oh, we were just dead opponent. Okay. They drew double burn spell. It is what it is. But that was not the greatest hand to keep after all. I thought we could do something with the Abrade. I thought we would draw lands, but we wound up drawing nothing but spells. Nothing but Arboreal Grazers, to be completely honest, and a Porphyros, which is not where the deck wants to be. So it is a little unfortunate that our first foray into playing decks on YouTube ended with a 1-4 record. The downside being that we lost all 4 of our last matches in a row. However, we did win our first match, so the video was looking like it was going to be good. But I'm not one for like cutting out bad matches or misplays by myself or anything like that. So all of these are going to wind up being up on the YouTube channel. So unfortunate, but we did learn a couple of things. So before we actually head out for the video, I do want to talk about what I thought worked well for the deck and what I thought could use a little bit of improvement. What we wound up seeing, now some of this may be just me not having practiced the deck before making this video and playing these matchups. So the first 5 matches I played with this deck are the ones that we're watching right here and now. So some of these matches may just be due to pilot error, which I do think there were a couple, like the Scapeshift in game match 3 against Rakdos Sacrifice. If I had done it the turn before they played the Mayhem Devil, it would have been a little bit slower. I would have had to just draw an extra 2 lands in order to actually combo off, but then we wouldn't have had to worry about Mayhem Devil. We would have been set up, and we weren't threatening, facing a life-threatening amount of damage that turn either. So without those sacrifice triggers, we still would have been alive, and we probably would have won that game. But looking at the deck as is, I think that the core of everything with Scapeshift and Splunking is really, really fun. I think these 2 cards as just combo cards are going to be something that a lot of people are trying to do for a very long time in the Pioneer format. There's a bunch of different things you can do. You can play ramp shells with this stuff. You can have normal enters the battlefield lands come into play on taps that you can pull off some shenanigans with them. I like the ability to Scapeshift away lands that Echoing Deeps can then copy. In this case, it was Sunken Citadel, which is a very powerful interaction that I wish we could have used more. Excuse me. I wish we could have used more. And I think because of that, that's one of the things we'll look at for improvements. But Splunking, Scapeshift, putting cards in the graveyard, copying them with Echoing Deeps, really cool. I think the ramp package, Arboreal Grazer, great. It was good against all of the aggro matchups. It was great against mono green. It was great against the mono red deck. And it was something that we kind of always wanted to see in our opening hand. So I very highly value the Arboreal Grazer for turning the turn 2 Splunking online. Glimpse the Core, the best ramping growth that we have in the format. Wasn't like super duper stellar. There were a couple of times that I maybe wanted to hold on to it to use the return cave ability, but we only have Echoing Deeps, I believe, is a cave. Sunken Citadel is also a cave. Excuse me again. Sorry about that. But so there's like the corner cases where you can use that to return one from your graveyard to the battlefield. Same thing with like the Scapeshift interaction with Echoing Deeps. So Glimpse of the Core, so like above average card. Wish once I remembered that you have to pay the mana for Wish, and getting up to 7 mana to Wish and Scapeshift, still functionally 4 additional copies of Scapeshift in your deck, bringing you up to 7 main deck Scapeshifts, auto-include in there. The Gods package. Klothys, All-Star. Drew Klothys against Phoenix naturally in the first game, and it was a powerhouse. Porphyros, God of the Forge, you need that for the combo, and Ohir Aksanil, need that for the combo as well. Ohir being able to flip over into a land was relevant like once for us, as it wound up getting roasted away by our mono red opponent, and we were actually able to kill them in that game because we had the extra land from Ohir Aksanil flipping over. And then the Golems package. I was not impressed with Solemn Simulacrum. The sad robot was very sad in this deck indeed. It did not do a whole lot. There was one game where it could have saved us against mono green, but because I chose to get aggressive with it, we didn't save the 2 life. I think it is literally just a 2/2 wall that is a mana ramp spell that will then draw you a card when it dies, and it blocks. So because of that, I think Solemn Simulacrum should actually be Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Let me just pull that up for everybody, just in case people don't remember what our somewhat seductive Dryad does. And I just need to make sure I have quantity on 0 so we can actually see it, because I don't own any. But Dryad of the Elysian Grove, this card here. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, which means that the same kind of effect, like Solemn Simulacrum searches your library for a land, that is a little bit better. But Dryad will let you play additional lands from your hand, which, yeah, we have 27 lands in our deck, but we didn't always have additional lands to play. But it also says that lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types, which means that it helps with playing some of our cards. There were times where we just did not have the right amount of red or green mana, so Dryad would fix those mana issues, which would be very, very huge for this deck. It's also a 2/4 blocker, which means that on curve within the Boreal Grazer, you can block up to 7 damage from an aggressive deck, and it's better than Solemn against a lot of these threats that are playing Trample. It's better against Monstrous Rage because you don't trample over damage even though you draw a card. So thinking about Dryad of the Elysian Grove in the spot of Solemn Simulacrum, but that's still just kind of up for debate right now. And then Golos Tireless Pilgrim. We never cast this card in our 5 matches. Every single time we saw it in our opening hand, we put it back for one of our mulligans. I don't know if I'm undervaluing this card. I do know that we can get 5 mana on turn 3 very quickly in this deck. We can curve an Boreal Grazer into a Splunking with lands in our hand, and then play a Golos the Tireless Pilgrim to get a copy of the World Tree. We can use Golos to get a copy of Radiant Fountain to gain life in aggro matchups. We can have Golos find us Sunken Citadel so that we can Scapeshift it away. So Golos seems like it has uses, but it was just a 5 mana taking up a spot in our hand for a lot of the matches that we wound up playing. And we played against a different deck every single game. We played against the Izzet Phoenix deck. We played against Selesnya Angels. We played against Rakdos Sacrifice. We played against Mono Green, and then ended the league against Mono Red. And Golos was never a card I wanted to see in any of those games until I had the mana to cast it. So I think that Golos is potentially a slot that we could take a couple away of. I don't think it's a 4 of. I think it's a 2 of at maximum, and that will let us put a couple of extra cards in those slots. I also think that by removing Solemn Simulacrum, maybe you remove all 4 and put in Dryads. Maybe you remove only 2 of them and do like a 2/2 split. Maybe you put in like an Azusa Lost But Seeking instead of Dryad of Elysian Grove, so you can play extra lands. Maybe you wind up playing some other sort of ramp spell like Cultivate in that spot. But you're not putting bodies on the battlefield. And we were taking a lot of pot shots from some of the more aggressive decks. And while Solemn can block and Dryad can block, that might be where we want to be instead of putting additional spells in our deck. But I think that there's some combination of 6 of these cards that you can cut. 4 to 6 of these cards can cut. And I think it winds up being that we cut a couple of these Golos, and I think I'm of the volition that we wind up cutting all 4 of the Solemn Simulacrums. That's something that I would do. And in these spaces, I think we're looking at putting a couple copies of Dryad of the Elysian Grove. I think that we actually want to have some copies of Volcanic Spite, which was a card that can help us put back some of the gods that we are missing, that we are drawing. There are a couple of games where we just couldn't cast a Porphyros or no, here at Axlanil, we got a Porphyros Thought seized away from us by a Rakdos sacrifice deck. So when we did wind up activating the World Tree, we weren't able to kill our opponent immediately. And they potentially had a way to just come out of nowhere and kill us because we were at like 10 or something, 12 life, and a Mayhem Devil off the top would have just killed us in that circumstance with a Fable on the battlefield. So being able to put all the gods back into your deck, I think, is very important. So Volcanic Spite might be something that I'm looking at. Also functions as one of those early removal spells that the deck kind of seems to be lacking. We put the Abrades in, we put the Burn Down the Houses in, we even put the one of Brotherhood's End into our deck in a lot of these aggro matchups. So Volcanic Spite might be something that has to be main deck because we need to be able to answer some of the more aggressive decks in the format that see a decent amount of play. And then that leaves me with 2 potential remaining slots. And I think that in addition to the angle of Volcanic Spite wanting to put those gods that we draw back into our deck, I think that we actually want to have some extra gods in our deck. And there aren't a ton of options in green and red that kind of work with it. However, I think a second Klothys might actually be a candidate for this deck. Klothys was a house against Phoenix. It's good against Amalia if they're going to be trying to get things back with Return to the Ranks. It's good against Rakdos Sacrifice because it makes them use their Cauldron Familiars sparingly and keeping their Witches' Ovens up, which saves you some life over the course of the game. It gains you life against these aggro matchups, which is pretty important. The downside is that with the anti-life gain cards being kind of main decked or sideboard from all of these Amalia matchups, or for all the Amalia matchups, Klothys' life gain might not be as relevant as I'm thinking it could be. It put us at like 28 in one of those Phoenix matchups, and when they had a Crackling Drake with 10 power, it was kind of an interesting thing to have. I don't know if those are the same games. The 5 matches are kind of blending together in my head. I have to go back and watch to like triple check it, but having the ability to gain life in some of these matchups is pretty big, as well as hating on some of the graveyard shenanigans that decks are doing right now. So I think an extra copy of Klothys is good. The other 2 gods that I was considering would be Xenagos. I believe he's Xenagos, god of revels. There he is. Xenagos is another of the indestructible devotion gods, but at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature gains haste and +X till end of turn, where X is that creature's power. This is the card that gets played in the Izzet Creativity Worldspine Worm deck to give the Worldspine Worm haste and double its power to be a 30/30 with trample. So Xenagos, God of Revels, was something I was just thinking of as another god to be in your deck, so you can find it with World Tree, so you always have lethal a bit available, even if one of your Porphyros has been thought seized away or you've drawn it or something and you can't put it back without Volcanic Spites in your deck or in your hand. And then it's also a god that has some sort of use because you can main phase, get a Xenagos into play, and give here at Axlanil 8 power with trample. You can give a Porphyros 12 power if there's nothing blocking it. You can give a Klothys 8 power and let it attack because you'll have devotion with all these gods on the battlefield and the Splunking. So Xenagos was something I was thinking of. And then there is the other Ohir, which is the green one, which I don't know the name of off the top of my head, which I'm probably going to butcher. Ohir Kaslam, Deepest Growth. There's been a couple of conversations I saw on Reddit, especially on the thread for my 60-second deck tech, saying that people are enjoying playing this one on the Arena version and Explorer. But whenever this Ohir deals combat damage to a player, you can reveal that many cards on the top of your library and then put a creature card or a land card from among them onto the battlefield, and you put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And when it dies, it flips on over into a land, which does the exact same thing. You get a land, and then you can like return it to the battlefield. So this out here, it's not quite a Primeval Titan, but it's also a 6-power trampler. So if you were thinking about putting Xenagos in, 12-power trampler with haste. It also winds up looking at the top 6 cards when it connects, and it can find you a land that you can then use to continue going for your total Rain Down the Gods combo with the World Tree. It also finds you a creature if you need to find like a Dryad of the Elysian Grove, if you need to find one of your gods, because you can just potentially kill your opponent through combat damage that way. So I think those two are gods that I would consider putting in. And in general, I'm looking to up the god count from the 6 that were in the main deck to maybe 7 or 8 total, because we have the extra slots if you cut the Golos, you have the extra slots if we're cutting the Solemn Simulacrum. And then that means that maybe you don't need Volcanic Spites by having extra gods, because every single god is 8 additional damage. So with 6, we have 48 if both Porphyroses are still in your deck. With 7, you're getting 8 additional damage from that. So you're going all the way up to 56. 8 then puts you at a very comfortable 64, the Nintendo number. But that also means that if there's only one Porphyros in your deck, that number gets cut in half. So 64 is 32. That's still enough to kill somebody. If you're drawing 2 of them, you're going down to... you're going down from 64 to 56, and then what was the number that I said before that? 42. So you're still like dealing enough damage, putting all these creatures onto the battlefield to kind of alpha strike somebody with your combo. That's why I'm looking at putting a couple extra gods in the deck. Sideboard cards, I thought the sideboard functioned okay. I think I was sorely missing a little bit more of the board wipe package. I think I do like the silver bullets altogether. This pile right here, Tormod's Crypt, there were a couple times I considered taking it out. I think it's very good against Amalia, Greasefang, any kind of decks like that. So that's definitely a mainstay. I almost wanted it against Phoenix, but I wound up being able to kill my opponent instead because of the way my draws lined up. So there's that. World Tree, Cavernous Souls, I wished for those multiple times. So I think that is very viable to have extra lands in your sideboard. Cindervines had potential. We did not play against any other combo decks. We didn't play against Lotus Field. We didn't play against other versions of the Scapeshift deck. We didn't play against Creativity or anything like that. So I think that Cindervine still has a place in the sideboard, but I don't know if it's as relevant if you're going to continue to see the types of decks that we saw today plus the Amalia combo. So maybe the Cindervines comes out and another form of removal comes in. Scapeshift, obviously, the 4th copy in the sideboard is great to wish for. Quakebringer, there were 1 or 2 times I wanted it, but I never actually wound up getting it. I don't know if this is good enough or if it's just cheeky, considering you also have to pay for it if you wish for it, as we learned the hard way. I think this might just wind up being Rampaging Ferocidon. I also like the fact that you can Rampaging Ferocidon whether here at Oxonil, like we saw the mono red deck doing, and your opponent is suddenly taking 4 damage for all the creatures that they are playing. It gives you like a backup plan against aggro decks. It makes them think twice about how they're playing their creatures out, which then lets you burn down the house or Brotherhood's End to kind of reset their board, and you're way far ahead at that point. Brotherhood's End, potentially even want another one. Burn Down the House is actually extremely good. The times we were able to cast it and the matchups we wanted to put it in wound up blowing up some Planeswalkers as well. So I really like the Burn Down the House. I think that's a really good inclusion there. Pithing Needle, we shut down some Shanzas with that. We won a game because of it. Pithing Needle's here to stay. Valakut Exploration, I really like this card. We didn't run into the matchups for it. We did wind up putting it in against the Izzet Phoenix deck. I believe we put one in, maybe. I forget. But this is for like an anti-control card or for the control matchup specifically. I like the idea of this card. I would definitely keep it in. And then the Abrades, we need more removal in this deck. So like overall, I'm kind of looking at maybe taking out the Quakebringer, putting in a Rampaging Ferocidon or maybe even a Rolling Vortex, if that's something that we're thinking of, because you can just activate its ability to not gain life and it doesn't die like any of the creature-based removal does, and it's an enchantment, which is harder for some decks to interact with, like the Rakdos decks. So maybe taking out the Quakebringer. I think Cindervines is a potential, depending on your meta, to take that out. And I did say that, like, with the onset of so many creature-based decks, I think I want more removal spells. I think I want ways to exile graveyards, maybe a second Tormod's Crypt, and then potentially looking at some, just extra removal spells, like maybe Rending Volleys or something if your meta is more white and blue focused. Maybe Roast if you're having an issue dealing with Sheoldreds because you're drawing cards off of Splunking and you're drawing cards off of Solemn Simulacrum and you're taking extra damage that way. I think that the sideboard still has like some modularity to it that you can play around with. I don't think it's really set in stone, but I do think those key Wishboard, Singleton, Silver Bullet cards are ones that you want to keep. For the last little bit, because I've been kind of ranting on about how I might improve the deck, just because I think there are improvements you could make. I don't think the deck is perfect, and I obviously didn't play it perfect, but one of the things that I kept running into was issues with my mana base. Considering I was aggressively mulliganing down to 5 cards, 4 cards a lot in these matchups. Maybe that's the wrong way of looking at the deck. It worked out for us in multiple matches, so I'm thinking that's the right way to do things. I think that we need to be very conscious of the fact that our fastest way to kill people is with Sunken Citadels and Echoing Deeps. We want to make sure that we have 5 copies of Sunken Citadel when we Scapeshift as early as turn 4 with 5 lands on the battlefield. So we can we can float with 1 Sunken Citadel and then find 4 more and just immediately go with a Splunking in play. Because of that, I think that we want to have an extra copy of Echoing Deeps in the deck. I think that there were a couple of times where when I drew 2 Sunken Citadels, I could use 1 to float. I had to use 1 to cast the Scapeshift. That meant that I couldn't find enough of these 2 mana land activating spells to then play a World Tree and activate it, even with a Splunking in play. If I drew 2 of the Sunken Citadels, if I drew 2 Sunken Citadels and I had 1 in play, I could do it. If I drew 2 Sunken Citadels, but I wasn't able to have that extra 1 to float the 2 mana, you're not able to do it, which is why I kind of want that extra Echoing Deeps, so that you could wind up having at least 4 Sunken Citadels with 1 floating, which is what you're trying to do most of the time in this deck, or finding 5 Sunken Citadels in total and having a World Tree as well. So for that reason, I think you need an Echoing Deeps. And then I also was running into issues where I just didn't have the right color of mana in the early game. I needed red for Wish. I needed double red to cast Brotherhood's End and burn down the house out of the sideboard. But I needed green for Boreal Grazer. I needed green for Glimpse the Core. I needed green for Splunking. I'm going to take some of the cards that I suggested out of the deck. But I kept running into issues where I had the wrong land. I had the wrong lands, and that was probably a bit of pilot error, but it was also probably a little bit of the fact that the deck has a lot of enters the battlefield tapped lands. These Sunken Citadels, yeah, they're any color, but they enter the battlefield tapped. These Echoing Deeps potentially could be any color, but they enter the battlefield tapped. Pit Offering. This would be a very good utility land that you could find with Golos to hate on the graveyards. However, enters the battlefield tapped. You need a Splunking in play with this mana base to really do anything, which is why we were aggressively mulliganing so much. Even the World Tree enters the battlefield tapped, so you're not doing a lot when you really want to find untapped forest or untapped green-red land. So I think that Mirrex is here to stay, because you want the Mirrex to create those Phyrexian Might tokens so that you can continue to trigger your Porphyros in case you can't kill somebody. But if you're changing the deck so that you have more gods in there, this might not be something that you don't need 100%. I think the Cascading Cataracts is cute, but if you're cutting down on the Goloses, you might not necessarily need this. But by upping the number of gods in your deck, the number of Golos hits goes up. So that may be something that you need to consider, but I think the Cascading Cataracts is something you can cut. There are a couple of times where the Radiant Fountain would save us the game. just gaining the extra life. I think that one has earned its place, even though it's a colorless mana. I would still look to maybe cut that one. Sheltered Thicket, it's a cycle land. It enters the battlefield tapped. It's a dual land. Cool. We're only able to find basic forests off of Glimpse the Core. I don't know if I would want this to be a different land that could potentially come into play untapped some of the times, like a Copperline Gorge, or if I would want this to be a pathway so that I could choose what color it's going to be so I can play something on turn 1, turn 2, and not have this only be something I play off of an Arboreal Grazer or a Splunking. So that would be something I look at. Sokenzan, it's an auto-include in so many lists, and this does provide some desperate blockers in some cases. Not sure if it has the space here to be here instead of being another dual land. Temples of Abandon, I like the temples when I'm playing Arboreal Grazer. I like the temples when I'm playing Splunking. It's really hard for me to say to kind of cut any of those. It's very difficult, and I'm seeing like now as I'm going through why the lands are the way they are, and maybe we actually go up to 28 to include, you know, an extra Copperline Gorge or an extra green-red dual land when we're cutting down, and maybe we only add one god, or maybe we don't add the Volcanic Spites main deck and we add lands in those places instead, just to make sure that we're consistently hitting the cards on curve that we need to do. But it's gotten to be about a 3-hour league now. It's pretty early in the morning here on the West Coast, so I'm going to call it there. Thanks for tuning in, for watching the full league of the Gruul Scapeshift deck. If you like this content and you want to see some more of the deck techs, I do 60-second versions, which I post on my YouTube for shorts, as well as my TikTok channel. You can find those right up here at OptimusTomTV. I do full deck techs as well, which are somewhere between 3 and 10 minutes, depending how much I talk about the deck, to be a little bit more in-depth, to walk through some of the lines of the deck and kind of give you a more in-depth look at it rather than just a TLDR like the 60-second versions do. And then I'm also taking a look at doing more content based around the metagame and what the format looks like as a whole, if it's healthy, and discussing things like that. Tournament reports to look at how the metagame share is breaking down for all the popular decks in Pioneer. And of course, standard RCQ season is basically upon us. Probably going to be delving into a little bit of standard coverage as well, and then modern when the RC rolls around. So if you like Magic the Gathering content like this, like I said, subscribe, like, comment, whatever on the video here. Optimus Tom TV on YouTube and TikTok. You can find me on Reddit at Optimus Tom or at Optimus Tom TV on Twitter as well. So everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next league.